Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. He was already quite satisfied with being able to supplement his ninjutsu and increase his chakra. However, why would recruiting Hidden Hot Water Village result in a reward of the evil god cult's techniques? Could it be that Hidden Hot Water Village had been flirting with the evil god cult all along? This was completely inconsistent with Hidden Hot Water Village's atmosphere of comfort and relaxation. After all, in Byakuya's memory, the evil god cult was a sect devoted to sacrifices, where the more painful the death of the offering, the more favor they earned from the evil god. In the original timeline of the Akatsuki, there was also Hidan, a member of the evil god cult. Returning his thoughts to the present, Byakuya accepted the forbidden jutsus of the evil god cult, which contained a technique called curse jutsu, death-controlling possessed blood along with its accompanying techniques. Byakuya was not unfamiliar with this technique. It was Hidan's signature technique. As long as he could obtain the blood of the corresponding ninja, he could perform the technique and harm his enemies through self-harm. Ninja like Asuma, the 2 Tails Jinchuriki, and the 7 Tails Jinchuriki all died under this technique. After carefully reviewing the conditions for performing the curse jutsu, death-controlling possessed blood, Byakuya's mouth twitched slightly. This forbidden technique of the evil god cult was quite similar to the Hyuga's gentle fist. It was useful but not particularly powerful. First of all, to use curse jutsu, death-controlling possessed blood, one must first obtain the enemy's blood. This step isn't particularly difficult, as it is easy to obtain blood during battle, and there are also various underhanded means. However, to perform curse jutsu, death-controlling possessed blood, one must first set up a ritual array and stand within it to cast the technique. The enemy has ample time to destroy the ritual array, rendering this technique ineffective. Furthermore, this technique has a range limit, and if it exceeds that range, its effects will also fail. The most demanding aspect is the cost of performing this technique. To curse the enemy, one must inflict the same amount of harm upon oneself and, after the ritual is over, self-harm for half an hour to please the evil god. All these conditions combined require man's courage and an undying body to perform curse jutsu, death-controlling possessed blood. No wonder the evil god cult possesses such powerful techniques. After developing for so many years, they still hide near Hidden Hot Water Village. What normal ninja would perform such rituals? Even their followers might not be able to do it. Only Hidan, who had undergone forbidden experiments to gain his immortal body, could barely use it. Complaints aside, Byakuya still noted the techniques of the evil god cult down. Although this technique was almost useless, it could still serve as a surprise attack, showcasing decent effects in critical moments. Stepping out of the room, Byakuya strolled through the streets of Hidden Hot Water Village, looking for something interesting to join. After this meeting, Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Clouds Village would surely be seething with anger and might clash at any moment. When that time came, he could step in to mediate the conflict between the 2 sides. Unfortunately, Byakuya did not see many Hidden Leaf Village or Hidden Clouds Village ninjas. The few that appeared quickly fled upon noticing him. Am I really that scary? Byakuya shrugged, revealing an expression of helplessness. Just then, Byakuya sensed unusual movements outside the village. Several chakra signatures at the level of Jonin were erupting, prompting him to hurry over to see what was going on. Before long, Byakuya arrived at the battle site. He saw Kakazu and Seisaori, both dressed in the Akatsuki's signature cloaks, surrounding a seemingly mentally unstable young man. Despite being covered in blood, the young man's face radiated arrogance, as if he were intoxicated by the pain. Could this person be Hidan? After silently reciting a few words in his heart, Byakuya approached Kakazu and Seisaori, asking, Kakazu, Seisaori, didn't the organization instruct all members not to cause trouble in Hidden Hot Water Village? Hidden Hot Water Village is a village we're trying to recruit. Seisaori snorted coldly and replied, this guy provoked us first. He showed up asking us to join some cleansing cult and was babbling about sacrifices and other crazy talk. If it weren't for the fact that this guy has no bounty, I would have taken his head for a reward already. Kakazu nodded and then seemed to recall something, saying, But this kid can really take a beating. Even after I pierced through his body, he kept on fighting. Feigning surprise, Byakuya exclaimed, "Does that mean he has an immortal body just like you, Kakazu-senpai? Haven't you tried to recruit him?" Kakazu remained silent, seemingly realizing he had indeed forgotten about that. At that moment, Hidan noticed Byakuya and shouted, "Hey, kid over there. Do you want to join the evil god cult? Just sacrifice yourself, and you can embrace Lord Jashin." Byakuya couldn't help but roll his eyes at Hidan's words. What kind of god is called an evil god? Are you trying to tarnish your own god's reputation? The evil lord is the evil god, who never pretends. Byakuya sneered and replied, "Since your evil lord enjoys sacrifices so much, why don't you offer yourself as a sacrifice?" Hidan scratched his head and grinned widely, "I want to offer a sacrifice to the evil god too, but I have an immortal body, so it's not that easy for me to die. Plus, staying alive helps me please the evil god better." "I see. But I have one more question for you. Since the evil god loves pain and sacrifices so much, why doesn't he sacrifice himself?" "Well." Upon hearing this, Hidan fell into deep thought, pondering why the evil god wouldn't sacrifice himself. If the evil lord truly loved pain and sacrifices, then the evil god should be the first to offer himself, right? Could it be that the evil god doesn't really enjoy pain and sacrifice? Seeing this scene, Byakuya, Kakazu, and Sasori all looked at Hidan as if he were a fool. After thinking for a long time without arriving at an answer, Hidan finally heard the laughter from Byakuya and the others and, in frustration, shouted, "Let me ask you one last time, do you want to join the evil god cult or not?" Byakuya gently shook his head and said, "Sorry, I have no intention of joining the evil god cult, nor do my two subordinates. I was just teasing you." Hidan's expression darkened immediately, and he swung his scythe, charging toward Byakuya. Byakuya didn't make a move, he simply said calmly, "Kakazu, Sasori, this guy is up to you. Isn't he supposed to be immortal? You don't need to hold back." Chapter 210, The Ambitions of Uchiha and Hyuga. Under the full force of Kakazu and Sasori, Hidan was defeated within a few exchanges. During this time, he managed to obtain some of Kakazu's blood, but before he could perform the sacrificial ritual, Sasori forcibly interrupted him. His immortal body was firmly pressed to the ground, rendering him unable to move. When facing elite Jonin-level enemies, Hidan's immortality could serve as a surprise tactic, but against shadow-level powerhouses, he could only be unilaterally crushed. Unfortunately for him, Byakuya was aware of Hidan's intel. Kakazu and Sasori had immunity to the evil god cult's rituals, leaving Hidan lying helplessly on the ground in frustration. Crouching in front of Hidan, Byakuya poked him with the hilt of his sword and said, "Hidan, it seems your immortal body isn't all that impressive, huh?" Hidan glared fiercely at Byakuya, unwilling to back down. "You're only relying on your two subordinates. Without them, you're not my opponent at all." Kakazu and Sasori exchanged glances, silently agreeing that they were indeed the subordinates. Hidan continued to boast, "Kid, if you have the guts, kill me. Otherwise, once I leave here, I'll do everything in my power to kill you." Byakuya's expression grew serious as he said earnestly, "Are you really going to kill me? In that case, I'll just have to pour you into cement and sink you into the sea. I hope you can withstand hundreds of years of solitude and torment." After saying this, Byakuya turned to Kakazu and Sasori, looking for cement and sand, ready to bury Hidan alive. Seeing this, Kakazu and Sasori came to help, but their gazes remained fixed on Hidan. Especially Sasori, who looked at Hidan with great interest. Noticing Sasori's gaze, Byakuya said lightly, "Don't get your hopes up. Hidan's immortal body isn't invincible. As long as we seal his body in different places, what threat does he pose, even if he's still alive?" Pausing for a moment, Byakuya continued, "Also, Sasori, don't you think his immortal body is not much different from your puppet body? The difference is that you're a puppet, while he's flesh and blood." Sasori nodded in agreement but wondered how Byakuya knew about his plans to modify his body into a puppet. At this moment, Kakazu had gathered the necessary materials, and the three returned to Hidan's side, preparing to seal him in a cement pillar. Seeing the cement pillar, Hidan still held his ground. But when the cement was piled up to his chest, Hidan finally felt a sense of fear. He wasn't afraid of dying, but he dreaded dying alone in solitude, especially since his immortality wasn't genuine. If he went without food for a few months, his immortal body could also starve to death from malnutrition. "I was wrong. What do you want from me? As long as you don't sink me into the sea, I'm willing to do anything." Upon hearing this, a smile crept onto Byakuya's lips. "Well then, welcome to the Akatsuki. However, before you join, you need to take us to meet the evil god cult. Do you want to meet the evil lord?" Hidan was somewhat puzzled but agreed to Byakuya's terms, thinking that with the strength of the evil lord, he could definitely handle these troublesome ninjas. In the reception hall of Hidden Hot Water Village, the Jonin from Hidden Leaf Village gathered together, and the atmosphere felt somewhat heavy. A few hours earlier, during the multi-party negotiations, they had successfully represented Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Clouds Village, securing a temporary peace for the village. However, they were not very satisfied with the outcome of the talks. Before the war began, Hidden Hot Water Village was an ally of Hidden Leaf Village, providing raw materials and markets for the Land of Fire, and serving as a buffer zone between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Clouds Village, making it strategically significant. However, after this round of negotiations, Hidden Leaf Village lost its ally in Hidden Hot Water Village and, along with it, the northeastern barrier. Fortunately, Hidden Clouds Village also did not gain control over Hidden Hot Water Village, and Hidden Hot Water Village promised to remain neutral, refusing to take sides between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Clouds Village. But this did not mean Hidden Leaf Village could rest easy in the northeast. Hidden Clouds Village could still launch attacks on the Land of Fire through the narrow border, or even directly raid the eastern coastline of the Land of Fire. Hidden Hot Water Village was not truly neutral, it had tilted towards Hidden Rain Village. Because the leader of Hidden Rain Village was a disciple of Jiraiya, they posed no immediate threat to Hidden Leaf Village. However, Hidden Rain Village's actions this time proved that they were not without ambition. While Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Leaf Village might be able to cooperate against Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Clouds Village, once the village's interests were involved, Hidden Rain Village would not hesitate to stab Hidden Leaf Village in the back. But this was an unavoidable situation. Although Hidden Leaf Village still held the nominal title of the #1 ninja village, it was essentially a hollow shell. The successive departures and betrayals of the 3 legendary ninjas, along with the death of the 4th Hokage and his wife, had severely impacted the village. If things did not turn around soon, Hidden Leaf Village might not even be a match for Hidden Clouds Village, especially with Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Mist Village lurking behind. After a long silence, Jiraiya spoke up to break the tension. The talks with Hidden Clouds Village have concluded. We have finally secured this hard-won peace. I have already reported the results to Lord Third, it won't be long before we can return. From his tone, it was clear that Jiraiya was not in a good mood. It wasn't solely because Hidden Leaf Village had lost its interests in Hidden Hot Water Village, but rather because Orochimaru's defection from the village had dealt him a severe blow. After all, with Orochimaru's departure, the once trio of legendary ninjas was now reduced to just him. Shikaku also appeared downcast. Although the war with Hidden Clouds Village had ended, there would be another war without gunpowder waiting for them back in the village. Despite Orochimaru's defection, the remnants of his followers still needed to be dealt with. After addressing these remnants, the vacant positions would spark competition among the various ninja clans. While it wouldn't directly affect the Inuzuka, Nara, and Akimaki clans, it would still bring them unnecessary troubles. In contrast to Jiraiya and Shikaku, Fugaku Uchiha was eager to return to the village. Hidden Leaf Village hadn't gained much from this war, but the Uchiha clan had achieved great glory. The elimination of the Two-Tails Jinchuriki and the near-equal showdown against the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki had turned Shisui into a prominent figure on the front lines. Upon returning to the village, the clans that had sidelined the Uchiha would finally understand just how powerful they were. With Shisui's support, Fugaku believed he could propose the candidacy for the 5th Hokage at the next meeting of the Upper Ninjas, ultimately winning the election and reaching the pinnacle of his life. Although Shisui found Fugaku's enthusiasm somewhat irritating, he couldn't help but entertain the thought of having an Uchiha as Hokage upon seeing the eager eyes of his clan members. But then Shisui recalled Byakuya's words and began to worry again. Would the Uchiha ultimately meet their demise because of his Mengekyo Sharingan? Should he heed Byakuya's advice and make preparations for the Uchiha? The Hyuga clan's ninjas were equally excited. In this war, the Hyuga clan had maximized the advantages of their Byakugan. The combination of the Byakugan's insight and their gentle fist style allowed them to defeat numerous Jonin from Hidden Clouds Village. The accolades they received ranked just below those of the Uchiha clan. As a result, ideas about participating in the Hokage election also sprouted in their minds. Although Hyuga Hisashi was from the branch family and didn't have the qualifications to become Hokage, he hoped his older brother, Hisashi Hyuga, could take the position. After all, the Hyuga clan was one of the major clans in the village and had never had a Hokage. Thus, at the same time, 2 major clans of Hidden Leaf Village began to entertain thoughts of running for Hokage. They both aimed to take a step forward during the time when Orochimaru's defection had left the Hokage's faction weakened. Chapter 211, The Means of the Third Hokage. Half a month later, Jiraiya led Hidden Leaf Village ninjas back to the village. As the heroes who ended the war, Jiraiya and the other ninjas were warmly welcomed by the villagers lining the streets. The villagers were indifferent to whether Hidden Leaf Village and the Land of Fire had lost anything in this war, nor did they care if the title of the first ninja village had been shaken. After experiencing the Third Shinobi World War, the Night Tales Night, and Hidden Clouds Village War, both the villagers and ninjas of Hidden Leaf Village were weary of war. They just wanted to enjoy the hard-earned peace and did not want their friends and family to step onto the battlefield again. After the welcome ceremony, Jiraiya and the others were invited to the conference room of the Hokage Tower. In stark contrast to the flowers and applause outside the Hokage Tower, the atmosphere in the conference room was unusually heavy, making it hard to breathe. Sensing the oppressive silence in the meeting room, Jiraiya quietly lowered his head. Shikaku, Fugaku, and others also felt the weight of the atmosphere, their faces darkening. This did not feel like a commendation meeting but rather like a deliberate scolding. In fact, Hidden Leaf Village had not lost in this war, but the difference was minimal. After glancing around, Denzo spoke calmly. Jiraiya, I heard that during the signing of the peace agreement with Hidden Clouds Village, you abandoned the alliance with Hidden Hot Water Village and agreed to withdraw our troops from the Land of Hot Water? Jiraiya nodded, unable to deny it. He had indeed withdrawn ninjas from the Land of Hot Water. After a pause, Denzo continued, Jiraiya, do you know how much loss withdrawing from the Land of Hot Water will bring to the village? Other allies will also doubt the alliance after knowing about this. This is the most favorable condition I could negotiate. The village has not sent any follow-up troops to support. If you were at the front lines, Denzo, the situation would probably be even worse, Jiraiya said, glaring at Denzo. He was not afraid of the leader of Root. Denzo was left speechless. He hadn't made any significant contributions in this war. The newly recruited members of Root had not yet become combat ready, and Tenzo was still in training. However, Jiraiya's public refusal to give him face would be remembered as an offense. Seeing that Jiraiya and Denzo were about to argue, Koharu Utain quickly stood up and said, Denzo, Jiraiya's contribution this time is indeed very significant. If it weren't for him, this battlefield might have lasted for several more years. Hamoru Midokado also nodded, Tsunade is right. Jiraiya's achievements are substantial. It would have been even better if we could maintain the treaty with Hidden Hot Water Village. Who would have thought that Hidden Rain Village's ambitions were so great? They actually took advantage of our conflict with Hidden Clouds Village to pull in Hidden Hot Water Village and sign an alliance. However, as long as Hidden Clouds Village doesn't take the Land of Hot Water, they won't be able to pose a fatal threat to us. Jiraiya glanced at Denzo, who had been challenging him, and then at the two advisors who were trying to mediate. He somewhat understood the intentions of these old-timers. They were suppressing him on the surface, but in reality, they wanted to use this to undermine the significant contributions made by the Hyuga and Uchiha clans on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the third Hokage remained unresponsive, as if tacitly approving of Denzo and the others' actions. Why was this happening? Couldn't the village even manage clear rewards and punishments? Or was there really a faction of Hokage and other factions within the village? Couldn't there be a bit more leniency towards the Uchiha? With these thoughts, Jiraiya let out a soft sigh and suddenly felt that staying in the village was meaningless. For the rest of the time, Jiraiya attended the meeting in a distracted state, only nodding or shaking his head in response to others' questions. As the meeting progressed, Fugaku's mood worsened. If they were suppressing even Jiraiya, they certainly wouldn't mention the contributions of the Uchiha clan, which made him restless and unable to hold back his anger. At this moment, Denzo seemed to remember something and turned to Fugaku Uchiha, saying, Fugaku, I heard that Shizue Uchiha has awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Is this true? Upon mentioning the Mangekyo, Fugaku proudly replied, Shizue has indeed awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, and he even defeated the Two-Tails Jinchuriki. He held his own against the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki as well. I see. Denzo nodded and then said, since Shizue defeated the Two-Tails Jinchuriki, where is the Two-Tails Jinchuriki now? Why don't you use the Jinchuriki to exchange for concessions from Hidden Clouds Village? Well. Fugaku frowned, as he also did not know the whereabouts of the Two-Tails Jinchuriki. Seeing that Fugaku was reluctant to answer this question, Denzo spoke up, Fugaku, you wouldn't say that the Two-Tails Jinchuriki is already dead, would you? The Two-Tails Jinchuriki shouldn't die so easily. Faced with Denzo's sudden attack, Jiraiya couldn't help but interject, Denzo, the Two-Tails Jinchuriki is indeed dead. Byakuya can testify to that. Byakuya? Denzo retorted without holding back, can we trust an outsider? I suspect you Uchiha have secretly hidden the Two-Tails. Hearing this, Fugaku angrily said, Denzo, don't slander us. Shizue would never hide the Two-Tails, and while the Uchiha were fighting to the death on the front lines, what were you and your Root doing? Denzo spoke expressionlessly, who knows if you Uchiha are just pretending. Shizue could have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan earlier or later, but he chose to do so now. Who knows what else he has used the Mangekyo for? As these words were spoken, the other ninjas perked up and looked at Fugaku. They all caught the implications in Denzo's words. Not only did he question whether the Uchiha had secretly hidden the two tails, but he also directed the blame for the Nine Tails Knight toward Shizue. Moreover, if Shizue could defeat the Two Tails Jinchuriki, he might have the potential to control the Night Tails Jinchuriki. With so many eyes on him, Fugaku's expression grew increasingly grim. He genuinely wished the Uchiha had the strength to provoke the Nine Tails incident, then, they wouldn't have had to shrink back within their clan's territory. However, the Mangekyo Sharingan indeed had the ability to control tailed beasts, making Shizue's suspicion quite high. This was something he hadn't anticipated. He thought the emergence of the Mangekyo would increase the clan's influence, but instead, it had drawn Denzo's scrutiny and suspicion. If no one stood up to speak for the Uchiha at this moment, they would surely become the target of everyone's criticism. At this point, the third Hokage, who had been sitting in the main seat in silence, slowly spoke up. Denzo, you need to stop. Shizue grew up under my watch, and I believe he is a good kid. He would never do anything to harm the village. If he really had any ulterior motives, he wouldn't use the Mangekyo Sharingan to protect his comrades. Chapter 212, The Discrepancy Between Master and Apprentice. If Shizue really had any ulterior motives, he wouldn't be using the Mangekyo Sharingan. Upon hearing the third Hokage's statement, Denzo opened his mouth to say something but ultimately gave up and obediently sat back in the corner. The other Hidden Leaf Village Jonin present also stopped whispering and turned their gaze toward the third Hokage. Clearing his throat, the third Hokage continued, in this defensive war against Hidden Cloud's village, Jiraiya has performed admirably. With just over 3,000 troops, he repelled an attack from nearly 10,000 of the enemy. Although Hidden Hotwater Village has abandoned their treaty with us, they successfully expelled Hidden Cloud's village's influence from the Land of Water, reducing the threat from the northeast. Hidden Leaf Village ninjas no longer have to shed blood for Hidden Hotwater Village. Apart from Jiraiya, the Uchiha, Hyuga, and Inuzuka clans have also made significant contributions during the war. Among them, Shizue even defeated the Two Tails Jinchuriki, making outstanding contributions to the village. To reward Shizue, I plan to transfer him to my side for training, appointing him as a team leader. A team leader of the Anbu? This statement immediately caused an uproar in the conference room. Many of the Jonin suspected they had misheard, and both Fugaku Uchiha and Denzo frowned in response. Given Shizue's strength, being appointed as a team leader in the Anbu wasn't out of the question. The security forces and Hidden Leaf Village's defense division had similar positions, typically held by veteran Jonin, and Shizue was more than capable. However, he was to be a leader in the Anbu, and Shizue was an Uchiha. Since the establishment of the Anbu by the second Hokage, only one Uchiha had joined the Anbu, and that was Shizue's grandfather, Kagami Uchiha, but that was decades ago. With this in mind, everyone realized the third Hokage's intentions. Shizue was different from the other Uchiha. His grandfather, Kagami Uchiha, had been part of that group of Uchiha close to the Hokage. The third Hokage's actions aimed to win over the Uchiha and sever ties between Shizue and his clan. This was a blatant political maneuver, yet Fugaku Uchiha had no means to counter it, only nodding reluctantly in agreement. Thank you for your kind intentions, Hokage, but this matter still requires Shizue's consent. The third Hokage smiled lightly and said, I've met with Shizue a few times, he shouldn't have any objections to joining the Anbu. I apologize for taking such a fine subordinate from you, Fugaku. Despite feeling very dissatisfied, Fugaku Uchiha could only respond, it is indeed a blessing for Shizue to be valued by the third Hokage. After stepping in to help the Uchiha and seizing the opportunity to transfer Shizue, the third Hokage continued to distribute rewards. In addition to promising Shizue the position of Anbu team leader, the third Hokage also allocated a number of Jonin slots to the Uchiha, but compared to the number given to the Hyuga clan, the Uchiha's allotment was rather meager. Although the Hyuga ninjas had not contributed significantly during this defensive war, their sheer numbers were substantial. With so many high-level missions combined, this led to a significant increase in the number of Hyuga ninjas promoted to Jonin, even surpassing the Uchiha clan. Denzo observed all of this with disdain, secretly cursing the third Hokage's hypocrisy. From the beginning of the meeting, it had been nothing more than a double act between him and the third Hokage. Whether it was suppressing Jiraiya or recruiting Shizue, or granting excessive Jonin slots to the Hyuga clan. All of this aimed to divide the Uchiha and Hyuga, preventing these two largest clans from uniting. As long as the Hyuga and Uchiha were treated differently, the Uchiha could never ally with the Hyuga, continuing to be suppressed and discriminated against until their clan was completely extinguished. And the Hyuga clan had always been nothing to fear. As long as the caged bird system exists, they need not worry about the Hyuga clan becoming a threat. When necessary, it wouldn't be impossible to unite with the branch family members to deal with the occasionally ambitious main family. However, Denzo was somewhat dissatisfied with this performance. He was always the one playing the villain, while the third Hokage consistently played the role of the nice guy. This was the inherent advantage of the Hokage. Even if he paid a heavy price, he could only hide in the shadows. In the past, he might have felt extremely angry, but ever since obtaining Tenzo, he had calmed down. While Tenzo's bloodline wasn't as powerful as that of Hashirama Senshu, it still contained the strength of youth renewal. He just needed to wait until Tenzo grew up, and he could become the next Hokage of the village. When that time came, all the incriminating evidence he had gathered against the third Hokage over the years would be released, forcing the third Hokage to step down, while he would then emerge as the fifth Hokage. The two advisors and Jiraiya were also observing all of this. The advisors were already used to such a scene, having witnessed it for decades. As for the oppressed Jonin and clans, they needed to reflect on their own shortcomings. Over the years, had they genuinely worked on developing their own power? Had they contributed anything to the village? Jiraiya sighed inwardly, having already made a decision. After the meeting, Jiraiya headed to the Hokage's office. The third Hokage was watching the live feed through the crystal ball while puffing on his pipe. Upon hearing footsteps, he looked up at Jiraiya and smiled. "Jiraiya, you finally made it. Why do you look a bit unhappy? Don't take what I said to heart, it was just some small tactics for dealing with the clans. Denzo doesn't mean to target you specifically. The Uchiha and Hyuga have gained too much recognition this time, and they can easily get carried away. They still need to be reminded of their place. The Jonin slots are also something they require." Seemingly satisfied with Jiraiya's performance, the third Hokage began imparting some Hokage wisdom, preparing to position Jiraiya as the fifth Hokage. Among his disciples, the ones with the most favorable bloodlines and whom he held in the highest regard had either defected or left the village. Now, Jiraiya was the only remaining candidate for Hokage. As for his diligent eldest son and his wayward youngest son, he had considered cultivating them as candidates for Hokage, but they lacked the necessary achievements and strength. If he were to force them into the position of Hokage, the Sarutobi clan would face dire consequences. Jiraiya took a deep breath and then slowly said, "Old man, I heard that Orochimaru has defected." The third Hokage nodded with a complex expression. "Yes, Orochimaru has defected. When he left, he told me that the skies of Hidden Leaf Village can no longer accommodate his ideals, so he chose to leave." "I see." Jiraiya sighed softly, then with a serious expression requested, "Old man, now that the war has ended, I want to leave the village to bring Orochimaru back." Chapter 213, Jiraiya's departure. Upon hearing that Jiraiya wanted to leave to bring back Orochimaru, the third Hokage pondered for a few seconds before slowly responding, "Jiraiya, you should know that Orochimaru won't come back easily. Moreover, he has harmed comrades in the village and is now a dangerous rogue ninja. Even if you manage to bring Orochimaru back, he will receive the punishment he deserves." "I understand," Jiraiya said with a determined look. "But I still insist on bringing Orochimaru back. I won't allow him to continue down the wrong path." The third Hokage shook his head and replied, "I can't agree to this. The village is currently in a state of disarray and needs you, a war hero, to stabilize things. If word gets out that you're pursuing Orochimaru, the village could easily fall into chaos. And besides, I'm getting old. The position of fifth Hokage can only be handed over to you." Upon hearing this, Jiraiya hesitated, unsure of how to express his inner thoughts to his teacher. While he wanted to bring back Orochimaru, more importantly, he didn't want to stay in the village any longer. He had begun to despise Denzo's insidiousness, the hypocrisy of the advisor duo, and the tedious political maneuvers of the third Hokage. Because of these experiences, Tsunade had left the village, and Orochimaru had recently defected. In fact, thoughts of leaving the village and wandering the world had begun to emerge in his mind. However, if he truly left Hidden Leaf Village, his teacher would be left without a student. After leaving Hidden Leaf Village, he wouldn't find another place to belong. Even the trusted sanctuary of Mayabaku Mountain wasn't a permanent solution. He had only one homeland, and that was Hidden Leaf Village. Seemingly aware of Jiraiya's thoughts, the third Hokage sighed softly and then took out a scroll from his drawer, handing it to Jiraiya. Jiraiya took the scroll, noticing it was blank, and looked at the third Hokage in confusion. The third Hokage slowly said, "This is a long-term S-rank infiltration mission. Your task is to wander through various countries and seek out illegal elements that are secretly targeting the village. Remember to stay in touch. Submit a mission report periodically." Jiraiya wasn't foolish and quickly understood the third Hokage's intention. The old man didn't agree to his pursuit of Orochimaru, But he also didn't oppose it. This blank mission assignment seemed more like a grant of authority to act as he pleased. Old man, then I'll take my leave. Having obtained what he wanted, Jiraiya intended to leave immediately. Before stepping out of the office, he turned to the third Hokage and said, "Third Hokage, the policy of suppressing the ninja clans and supporting civilian ninjas isn't wrong, but I believe the reason comrades in the village are willing to give their lives in war relies on the will of fire." Jiraiya, I know the meaning of the will of fire better than you do. Once Jiraiya left, the third Hokage murmured to himself, then relit his pipe and began to smoke quietly. With Jiraiya's departure, he would become a complete loner. Although the head of the Anbu, Shinno, was his son, all the true inheritors of the legendary Sannin had already left the village. Why had this all come to pass? The third Hokage gazed at the portrait of Hashirama Senju, talking to himself in his heart. Jiraiya also quietly left Hidden Leaf Village, without alerting any ninjas during his departure. However, as time went on, Hidden Leaf Village ninjas discovered that Jiraiya had already left, and this news spread quickly throughout the village. Almost every ninja in Hidden Leaf Village became aware of it. There was much speculation within the village about why Jiraiya had suddenly left Hidden Leaf Village. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be unusual for a powerhouse like Jiraiya to go out on a mission, but just after concluding the war with the Cloud Village, and having been sidelined at the celebration, his behavior raised suspicions among the Hidden Leaf Village ninjas. They wondered if Jiraiya had fallen out with the third Hokage, otherwise, wouldn't it have been better to take advantage of the wars and to start campaigning for the position of fifth Hokage? Faced with the village's rumors and speculation, the third Hokage chose not to explain himself. As time passed, these rumors would naturally dissipate. He no longer cared much about his reputation, so let them say what they wanted. Denzo Shimura, who loved to spread rumors, also chose not to attack the third Hokage at this time. Now, he was more clear-headed than ever. Instead of risking failure by attacking the third Hokage, it was better to wait quietly for the third Hokage to make a mistake. Today, he taught Tenzo several wood-style techniques, all of which Tenzo mastered. There was also significant progress in the Root Laboratory, where they reportedly discovered a subject with a unique physique that could withstand the corruption of Hashirama cells and even reduce the side effects of transplanting the Sharingan. Once this technology was fully developed, he could possess both wood-style and the Sharingan. When the powers of the Senju of the Forest and the Uchiha clan combined, no one in the ninja world would be his match, not even the third Hokage or Kakashi. Within the Uchiha clan's territory, Itachi had heard about Jiraiya's departure. He didn't know why Jiraiya had left, but he was about to embark on a new chapter in his life. Upon learning that he had awakened the Sharingan, the third Hokage not only didn't doubt him but also transferred him to the Anbu, cultivating him as a trusted subordinate. In the past, he would have been deeply grateful to the third Hokage. He would have thanked the third Hokage for allowing him to be a bridge between the Uchiha and the village, but the successive departures of the Sannin left him with more doubts. If the third Hokage were truly flawless, why had the Sannin left one after another? Was it possible that the third Hokage intended to use him to create a rift between himself and his clan, ultimately seeking to divide the Uchiha? Could he instead leverage the third Hokage to bring about a transformation in his clan? In the Hyuga clan's territory, a meeting of the main family was taking place. Aside from Hayashi Hyuga, all the attendees were members of the main family. Hayashi had only managed to secure his place here due to his accomplishments as the leader of the branch family and on the battlefield against the Cloud Village. The main family elder, sitting in the first seat, first glanced at Hayashi and then said, "Hayashi, you did very well on the front lines this time, earning a lot of opportunities for the family. However, your rise has overshadowed your brother too much, try not to do that next time." Hayashi nodded in agreement. Although he was strong, he wasn't brave enough to challenge the caged bird system. After a pause, the main family elder continued, "As for the head of the family, Hinata will be turning 4 in 2 months. This year, her birthday should be celebrated grandly to mark the rise of the Hyuga clan." The usually silent Hayashi spoke up, "Hinata's birthday party is already in preparation. Please don't worry about that, elder. However, the battlefield has just concluded, is it really appropriate to be so extravagant? It's all for the Hyuga clan. Let's proceed with it," the main family elder said authoritatively. Additionally, it's time for the family to prepare for the caged bird ceremony. Upon hearing this, Hayashi felt as if he had been struck by lightning but dared not voice any objections. He could accept having the caged bird mark branded upon himself, but he could not accept Meiji also receiving the mark. Yet this was the fate of the branch family. Over the centuries, many had rebelled, but they all turned to dust in history. The caged bird system had always existed, and the children of the branch family would forever remain as branch family members. Chapter 214, By Akuya reviewing intelligence, it had been several days since returning to Hidden Rain Village. After arranging for Kakazu and Hidan to be in the same team, Byakuya leaned back on the sofa in his office to take a brief rest while recalling the process of visiting the cult of the evil god with Hidan over the past few days. The cult of the evil god was a cult organization active within the land of hot water, known for its penchant for killing and sacrifices. Initially, when he found the headquarters of the cult of the evil god, Byakuya was very interested, hoping to discover a powerful hidden organization in the ninja world. However, upon truly arriving at the cult's headquarters, Byakuya realized just how weak the organization was. Apart from the monster that was Hidan, the so-called leader of the cult was at most an elite Jonin, not even certain to defeat Kakashi from Hidden Leaf Village next door. When they met Hidan, the leader of the cult's expression changed drastically, his eyes filled with fear. Under the intimidation and temptation of Kakazo and others, the cult leader joined Hidan to perform the rituals of the cult of the evil god, successfully contacting the evil god of the cult. What Byakuya hadn't expected was that the evil god of the cult truly existed. However, the strength of this so-called evil god was not formidable, its chakra amount was even less than that of the Two Tails. Had the evil god not existed in an alternate space, they might have actually wanted to spar with it and engage in a hunt. Seeing the evil god actively avoiding battle seemed to stimulate Hidan. After eliminating the other members of the cult's headquarters, Hidan chose to join the Akatsuki organization, gaining his self-healing ability. Bringing back his wandering thoughts, Byakuya opened his eyes again and began to handle the intelligence work for the Akatsuki. The trip to the cult of the evil god had consumed almost half a month of his time, and it was time to deal with the mountain of accumulated intelligence. The first piece of intelligence indicated that Hidden Cloud's village had hurriedly withdrawn from the land of hot water. It seemed that due to the emergence of troublesome rogue ninjas within the land of lightning, they seized the opportunity while the fourth Raikage and Killer Bee were away to steal important secret techniques from Hidden Cloud's village. Upon seeing this intelligence, Byakuya narrowed his eyes. The secret techniques of Hidden Cloud's village were generally related to physical skills, but it was unclear whether the rogue ninja behind this was Orochimaru or another ninja. At that moment, Byakuya seemed to recall something and looked towards the direction of the land of fire. He only remembered one person who had seized the secret techniques of Hidden Cloud's village, that being the remnant of the land of the sky, Shinno, who wandered between various countries. This individual had previously attacked Hidden Leaf Village during the Second Shinobi World War, ultimately being eradicated by the Hokage and the Sannin. Shinno's reappearance coincided with Sasuke's defection period. At that time, Shinno was extremely powerful. Not only had he created the Zero Tails based on Hidden Leaf Village's secret techniques, but he also utilized the body revival jutsu to train the Eight Gates to an extremely profound level. Given Hidden Cloud's village's grand actions, it wouldn't be to deal with Shinno, would it? Considering Shinno's hatred for Hidden Leaf Village and his expertise in medical ninjutsu, Byakuya quietly noted down this piece of information. He intended to send his subordinate south to recover Shinno. The second piece of intelligence was related to Hidden Stone's village, Hidden Stone Village. After successfully infiltrating Hidden Stone's village, Kabuto had been gathering intelligence about the inner workings of the village for Denzo, sending a copy to Denzo while also keeping one for himself. During the war between the Cloud Hidden and Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Stone's village had considered intervening in the war, but ultimately abandoned the plan to ambush Hidden Leaf Village. Firstly, the previous invasion plans against the Land of Grass and Hidden Leaf Village had been thwarted by Minato, making the chances of success for another ambush even slimmer. Secondly, there were tensions between the third Tsuchikage Onoki and the Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki of Hidden Stone's village were all very powerful, possessing strength on par with the five Kage, but they were all lone wolves who greatly disliked Onoki's style of governance. Onoki had never considered handing over the position of Tsuchikage to either of the Jinchuriki. In this situation, the strength of Hidden Stone's village could not coalesce, let alone take the initiative to attack Hidden Leaf Village. However, upon hearing about the actions of the Akatsuki organization, Onoki took the initiative to send someone to Hidden Rain Village to establish friendly relations. Onoki wanted to use the Akatsuki to create chaos in the surrounding smaller countries, seizing the opportunity to gradually bring these countries into his sphere of influence and slowly erode the alliance system of Hidden Leaf Village. Regarding the message sent by Onoki, Byakuya did not rashly intervene. He planned to pass it on to Yahiko. Yahiko had matured into the leader of Hidden Rain Village, and so, many matters should be left to him to handle. There was no concept of good or evil between ninja villages, everything was done for mutual benefit. Even their teacher, Jiraiya, understood this, and Yahiko should be well aware of it too. After all, if one really believed in allies, the fate of the Uzumaki village was the best example. Rather than relying on allies for protection, it was better to make preparations in advance. After reviewing the intelligence related to Hidden Stone's village, Byakuya looked at the remaining intelligence from other ninja villages. Hidden Sand Village, located in the Land of Wind, remained as calm as ever. In this era, where oil resources had yet to be fully developed, there wouldn't be much interest from other ninja villages in the Land of Wind. However, recently, with the passing of the previous Jinchuriki, Hidden Sand Village had elected a new Jinchuriki. This time, the Jinchuriki was none other than the youngest son of the fourth Kazekage, Raza, Gara. There wasn't much intelligence coming from Hidden Mist Village either, but the current Mizukage should be Obito, whose education level could be likened to that of an elementary school graduate. Whether he governed Hidden Mist Village seriously or engaged in foolishness, the damage to the village would be about the same. In addition, there were some scattered pieces of intelligence regarding various legends in the ninja world, like tales of a gambling fat sheep. After reviewing these, Byakuya turned to the main event, the intelligence from Hidden Leaf Village. A thick stack was entirely dedicated to Hidden Leaf Village, reflecting the degree of his concern for the village. This was unavoidable. Setting aside the information about the departure of the Sannin and the internal conflicts among the ninja clans, Hidden Leaf Village was the strongest ninja village in the ninja world, capable of dominating the entire world with a strength of just one village during its peak. Even at its weakest, it could still hold its own against two opponents. The Uchiha, Senshu, and Hyuga clans also resided within Hidden Leaf Village, not to mention the recently born but yet immature Ashura and Indra reincarnations. Soon, Byakuya found the latest intelligence about Hidden Leaf Village. Hidden Leaf Village had neglected Jiraiya during the victory celebration and suppressed both the Hyuga and Uchiha clans. Shortly after the celebration ended, the last of the Sannin, Jiraiya, quietly left the Leaf Village. Seeing this news, Byakuya was somewhat surprised but also expected it. With Orochimaru already having defected, Jiraiya, as his close friend, would definitely go out to look for Orochimaru. This was the essence of Hidden Leaf Village, what they called bonds. The dilemma was that he had recently made contact with Orochimaru. If Jiraiya were to see them meet on that day, it would not bode well. The relationship between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Rain Village was still in a honeymoon phase, and they could not afford to enter into a hostile state just yet. Chapter 216, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Naruto. Byakuya and Black Zetsu talked for a long time, from the current state of the Jinchuriki to how to properly cultivate them. After listening to Byakuya's training plan, Black Zetsu had big question marks all over his small head, but due to his recognition of Byakuya's abilities, Black Zetsu chose to believe him. After all, in the past 1,000 years, he had never had a subordinate as reliable as Byakuya. Not wanting to waste any more time, after bidding farewell to Byakuya, Black Zetsu burrowed underground and quickly headed toward Hidden Leaf Village. Hidden Leaf Village. Just a day later, Black Zetsu arrived at Hidden Leaf Village. He first searched around the Sarutobi clan's residence and the Anbu base for Naruto, but found no trace of him. Just as Black Zetsu suspected whether the third Hokage had sent Naruto elsewhere for training, he unexpectedly bumped into the poor little Naruto on the street. Little Naruto appeared to be only about 3 or 4 years old, struggling to carry a plastic bag as he made his way toward the wilderness. The bag contained not much, just a few buckets of instant ramen and some cartons of milk, which seemed enough to fill his stomach. But was it really okay for Hidden Leaf Village ninja to be so indifferent? They actually allowed a Jinchuriki to wander around the streets freely. Moreover, if he heard correctly, the few villagers watching from a distance were discussing Naruto, saying that he seemed to be the child of a demon fox, who once brought misfortune and calamity to the village. Although Black Zetsu didn't understand the ninja's way of thinking, he felt that this situation was somewhat off. According to Byakuya, shouldn't a Jinchuriki be carefully nurtured to foster their sense of belonging to the village? Why would they let such a small child live alone? If he were truly an orphan with nothing, it would be understandable, but this was the son of the fourth Hokage. Soon, Black Zetsu noticed the Anbu members hiding in the corners monitoring Naruto and silently rejoiced that he hadn't revealed himself recklessly. Otherwise, if the Anbu found him, it would be even more challenging to approach Naruto in the future. Continuing to lurk underground, Black Zetsu witnessed Naruto's entire day. Compared to the children in orphanages, Naruto's life was undoubtedly happy. Not only did he have his own small house, but even his fridge was always stuffed full, with some food even going bad from being piled up too high. However, due to the lack of guardians, Naruto lived a largely unrestricted life, but this also brought endless loneliness. Naruto had no friends and didn't know what he wanted to do in the future. With nothing to do, Naruto could only wander around the village, enjoying the solitude and loneliness that belonged to him alone. Unbeknownst to him, he had left the Hidden Leaf Village urban area and, with a fishing rod and bucket in hand, arrived at the river outside the village, beginning to fish by himself. He didn't lack food, but he enjoyed the process of fishing. After all, no one paid attention to him on the street, so it was better to fish in the wilderness. At least there were no cold stares from villagers, nor those annoying peers. He never understood what he did wrong that always drew their ire. He could take on one or two of them, but couldn't fight against the united front of his peers and ultimately had to leave in shame. It was a significant matter for the Jinchuriki to leave the urban area, and the Anbu secretly protecting Naruto exchanged glances. One went to report to the Hokage's building, while the other stayed behind to monitor Naruto. Unaware of all this, Naruto continued to fish, casting his line again and again. Before long, his small bucket was full, so he stopped fishing, took out his lighter, and searched for wood to light a fire. After scraping the fish scales and gutting them, Naruto made a few cuts in the fish meat before he began to grill the fish. Under the flames, the fish quickly started to sizzle and release oil. Naruto, seeing this, didn't rush as he liked the charred flavor, as it brought him a sense of satisfaction when he ate it. At that moment, an elderly figure walked from the dusk, slowly approaching Naruto. This person was none other than Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, who had recently received reports from the Anbu. After the war ended, he suddenly had a lot of free time and finally had the opportunity to visit Naruto. Naruto is the child of Minato and Kushina. He is also the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails in the village. Every time he sees Naruto's smiling face, he always recalls Minato and Kushina, as well as the prosperous days in Hidden Leaf Village. Hearing footsteps, Naruto instinctively shrank back, but when he saw it was the third Hokage, he hesitantly said, "Grandpa Hokage, what brings you here?" "I came to visit little Naruto, to see how you are doing." "If you need anything, you can tell Grandpa Hokage," he replied. "Grandpa Hokage, I'm doing well. I never lack food or clothes, but the adults in the village always target me, and my peers don't want to be friends with me." After a pause, Naruto hesitated before asking, "Grandpa Hokage, do you think it's because I don't have parents that they bully me and don't want to play with me?" What Naruto said shook the third Hokage's heart. He sighed gently and replied, "That may be part of the reason, but I can issue an order to them to stop discussing you." When it came to his origins, Naruto asked with confusion, "Grandpa Hokage, who exactly are my parents, and what did they do before?" The third Hokage looked at Naruto and said, "Your parents were ninjas in the village and defended many enemies. To protect you, I cannot reveal their identities, not even to you." "Oh, I see." Naruto was silent for a moment before saying, "Then, Grandpa Hokage, you don't need to issue an order. Let them say what they want, it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to trouble you anymore." After speaking, Naruto took out a skewer of grilled fish and handed it to the third Hokage. "I may not have other friends, but as long as I have Grandpa Hokage, that's enough." "And, this precious little thing, the third Hokage took the grilled fish, took a bite, and frowned. Due to the lack of seasoning, the grilled fish didn't taste good, but the third Hokage's heart was filled with mixed emotions. His visit was not only to check on Naruto's living conditions but also to test Naruto's character and see if he inherited Minato's excellent lineage. It seemed that Naruto had passed the test and was fully capable of becoming a qualified Jinchuriki, but the third Hokage felt a bit sad about his own shortcomings. He felt somewhat guilty toward Naruto. Throughout the ninja world, all Jinchuriki face discrimination from the villagers. On one hand, this is due to the tailed beasts having previously harmed ninjas. On the other hand, it's also a fear of the Jinchuriki's power. Before they become perfect Jinchuriki, they can easily turn into rampaging beasts. Most importantly, the discrimination Jinchuriki face actually facilitates their control. In an environment where everyone discriminates against the Jinchuriki, if just one person stands up for them, the Jinchuriki will feel grateful and become a valuable asset to protect the village. As a qualified Hokage, there are things he cannot do but must do. Chapter 215, Next Steps by Akuya had always considered recruiting a scientific genius like Orochimaru. Orochimaru's talent in biology could be considered the best in the ninja world. Whether it was simplifying the Sage Mode with the Heavenly Curse Seal technique or the technology for implanting and merging bloodline limits, he could mass-produce subordinates with the strength of elite Jonin. In addition, Orochimaru had also improved the reanimation jutsu. He transformed what was originally a technique used solely as an auxiliary for explosive tags into an immortal reanimated monster, which could only be sealed away. If he could recruit Orochimaru, there would be no need for him to share anything. The continuous manufacturing of resources would allow him to pile up his strength to surpass that of the 5 Kage. Pulling his wandering thoughts back, Byakuya suddenly looked down at the ground and saw Black Zetsu emerging from the earth, casually sitting down in front of him. Noticing Black Zetsu, Byakuya frowned and said, "Black Zetsu-senpai, the office is full of people. If Yahiko and the others find out, it won't be easy for me to explain." "Don't worry, they're currently in a meeting at the Hidden Rain Village Tower, so they won't notice us here." Byakuya finally relaxed, then curiously asked, "What's the reason for your visit, Black Zetsu-senpai?" Has Masked Man made any new moves? Black Zetsu shook his head and sighed. The Masked Man has now taken control of Hidden Mist Village. I don't know if he's trying to compete with you, but he's busy managing the village every day. Initially, Black Zetsu had quite a favorable impression of Obito, the inheritor of Madara. However, even though Obito wasn't very sharp and often took things to extremes, he was the easiest Uchiha to control and the best executor of the Moon Eye plan. But comparison was troublesome. Obito's actions during the Nine Tails attack and in collecting tailed beasts didn't measure up to Byakuya's efforts. Although Obito had indirectly controlled the entire Hidden Mist Village through Agura, the village had become fragmented and chaotic under his management, hardly able to contribute any strength. The Three Tails and Six Tails were both tailed beasts of the Hidden Mist Village. However, the Three Tails was still waiting for revival in a corner of the ninja world, and the Six Tails Jinchuriki was quite self-reliant, playing at disappearing and rarely stayed in the Hidden Mist Village. Meanwhile, Byakuya not only developed Hidden Rain Village very well but also secretly captured the Two Tails Jinchuriki. The news about the Two Tails capture didn't cause much of a stir in the ninja world, which alleviated some obstacles for the Akatsuki's subsequent plans. After a pause, Black Zetsu continued, Byakuya, I came to reward you this time. You successfully captured the Two Tails Jinchuriki. I don't have much to offer, but I can give you a few small gifts. Black Zetsu was going to give gifts. Byakuya was slightly taken aback but quickly smiled and said, Black Zetsu-senpai, how can I accept this? Black Zetsu clapped his hands, and several white Zetsu emerged from the ground. Byakuya pretended to be curious and asked, aren't these white Zetsu? Do they have any special abilities? I already have one in Akatsuki with me. Black Zetsu noticed Byakuya's curiosity and said, do you remember the wood style used by the Masked Man? The Masked Man himself doesn't have the ability to use wood style, but after transplanting white Zetsu cells, he gained the ability to use it. With your physique, you should be able to handle part of the wood style's power. I'll leave these white Zetsu to you. Wood style. Byakuya's eyes brightened, then he smiled and said, since you're being so kind, I won't refuse. Although he was unsure of Black Zetsu's true intentions in giving him white Zetsu, and whether there might be any controlling methods like seals involved, at least he could now use wood style openly and utilize the white Zetsu as sacrifices for the reanimation jutsu. After Byakuya accepted the white Zetsu, Black Zetsu finally stated his purpose. Byakuya, now that you've captured the Two Tails, what's your plan next? Should we target the other tail beasts now and collect them all as soon as possible? Byakuya glanced at Black Zetsu, then gently shook his head and said, Black Zetsu-senpai, capturing one or two tailed beasts isn't a difficult task for us, but our goal is the entire ninja world. The Akatsuki spent 2 to 3 years taking control of Hidden Rain Village, and it will take a few more years to unify the land of hot water. If we rashly provoke a war, the Akatsuki might be pushed back to square one. Black Zetsu fell silent for a few seconds. His only plan was to revive his mother. He had never thought of ruling the world. However, if he were to oppose Byakuya at this moment, Byakuya would definitely begin to question the Moon Eye plan. After all, unlike Obito, Byakuya did not believe that the infinite Tsukimi would bring peace. What's your plan, then? Black Zetsu asked. Byakuya pondered for a moment and slowly replied, I don't plan to take action against the 5 great countries in the coming years. I will focus on the surrounding small nations. However, we should still find a way to stir up internal conflicts among the 5 great ninja villages and trap them in endless infighting. For that plan to sprout, I've almost prepared the means to deal with Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Sand Village. But Hidden Leaf Village is indeed a bit tricky. Although I secretly placed Shizui as a spy, he is still loyal to his clan and Hidden Leaf Village. Getting him to bring his clan members into the Akatsuki will be quite challenging. If possible, you and the Masked Man should carry out activities in Hidden Leaf Village. It's inconvenient for me to act there for the time being. After hearing this, Black Zetsu lightly nodded, leave Hidden Leaf Village to me and the Masked Man. You can rest assured about that. However, do you really plan to let the Uchiha join the Akatsuki? Byakuya shook his head, appearing strategic as he said, not just the Uchiha. I want to recruit more ninja clans from Hidden Leaf Village. The more friends, the better. From now on, I'll need you to help out more, Black Zetsu-senpai. At that moment, Black Zetsu seemed to remember something and quickly asked, Byakuya, do you remember the 4th Hokage's child who was the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails? He seems to have become the new Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Byakuya nodded, Black Zetsu-senpai, are you planning to target Naruto? He's too young. If we're not careful, he could die with the Nine Tails, which would waste a lot of our time. Black Zetsu clarified, I'm not planning to target Naruto, but I'm wondering if we can influence him while he's still young. That way, we'll have the strongest Nine Tails Jinchuriki on our side in the future. And since you're always resourceful, Do you have any good ideas? Black Zetsu was withholding some thoughts. He indeed wanted to control Naruto, but in addition to controlling the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, he also wanted to manipulate the young Ashura. Every time he tried to support Indra, he had failed, and it was time to cultivate Ashura this time. Byakuya glanced at Black Zetsu and saw through his thoughts. However, Black Zetsu's plan to cultivate Ashura was also quite interesting and might yield unexpected results. Chapter 217, The Old Man. Black Zetsu independent. After sending Naruto home, the third Hokage hurriedly returned to the Hokage Tower. As Hokage, he didn't have much time to waste on Naruto. There were many orphans in the village that needed care, and Naruto was just one of the more special cases. He also needed to focus on maintaining the balance of power. After granting several Jonin slots to the Hyuga clan, he initially intended to appease them while subtly inciting conflict between the Hyuga and Uchiha clans, letting them argue over who was the strongest bloodline clan. However, he didn't expect the Hyuga clan to become so inflated with ambition that they set their sights on various departments, thinking they could forcefully become advisory elders due to their number of Jonin, and even colluded with Denzo in secret. If Denzo and the Hyuga clan really reached an agreement, his position as Hokage would be in grave danger. Although he had once been the Hokage of the village, his current identity was merely acting Hokage. If the Jonin united to impeach him, he risked being forced to abdicate. He wasn't attached to the power of Hokage, but he absolutely couldn't let Denzo take the position. After the third Hokage left, Black Zetsu first sensed the positions of the Anbu around, then transformed into a spore and landed on Naruto's shoulder. He planned to use the spore jutsu to secretly influence Naruto. Previously, Black Zetsu had doubted Naruto's identity as Ashura, but after today's observations, he was completely certain that Naruto was indeed the reincarnation of Ashura. Only Ashura's reincarnation could have such an optimistic mindset, as it was difficult for others to achieve this. Naruto lay on the 1.5-meter-high windowsill, tilting his head to look at the scenery outside. The moonlit sky illuminated the 4 Hokage statues quietly resting on the cliff. The time spent with Grandpa Hokage was enjoyable, but in an instant, he was alone again. Living alone was very free but also incredibly lonely. If only there was someone to talk to, he truly felt the need for a friend. At that moment, a voice suddenly called out to Naruto, "Hey, you little brat over there, what are you doing?" Naruto jumped in surprise, looking around fearfully and asking, "Who are you? Where are you? Are you a ghost or a devil? What do you want?" "I'm right here, on your desk." "On my desk?" Naruto went over to the desk and saw nothing but a kunai pendant. He picked up the pendant and cautiously asked, "Are you in this kunai pendant?" Black Zetsu nodded and said, "Be gentle with me since I don't want to be scratched or chipped." "But you, little brat, do have some fate with me since you've awakened me." "Awakened you? Are you very old?" Naruto probed. "Of course. I've been living in this pendant for hundreds of years, since you can respectfully call me Black Old," Black Zetsu replied. "Black Old?" After a pause, Naruto pulled up a chair and sat down at the desk, saying, "Why are you in this kunai pendant? Did you encounter some enemies? My story could take 3 days and nights to tell." Black Zetsu's cold snort echoed in Naruto's ears, which piqued Naruto's interest and made him want to dig deeper. "I have time, so you can continue, Grandpa." Faced with Naruto's endless curiosity, Black Zetsu felt a sweat break out, but he could only grit his teeth and fabricate a legendary story for Naruto. While fabricating the story, even Black Zetsu felt that it had some significant holes. But he had no choice, since this was the method that Byakuya provided him, to approach Naruto with the guise of a kind, gentle old man and gradually influence him step by step. Moreover, Byakuya's approach was entirely different from the way he had manipulated Indra, since it was a whole different strategy. An hour later, Naruto was so exhausted that he could barely keep his eyes open. After wishing Black Zetsu good night, he collapsed onto his bed and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Black Zetsu let out a sigh of relief. Although he had manipulated more than a dozen Indras, he had only done so after they had grown up, since this was the first time he was nurturing one from childhood. He had never encountered a curious child like Naruto. Nearby, an Anbu watching from a tree frowned. Before falling asleep, Naruto had been talking to himself for several minutes. While it was common for children to go through a phase of talking to themselves, the duration seemed a bit excessive. This strange phenomenon had to be reported to the Hokage, since any little matter concerning a Jinchuriki in the village was significant and could not be overlooked. The next morning, Naruto saw the third Hokage again. The third Hokage arrived carrying snacks and milk. After checking around Naruto's home, he noticed the uniquely designed kunai pendant. Such small trinkets were common in Hidden Leaf Village, but the third Hokage still took the time to examine it thoroughly. After confirming that the kunai pendant was fine, he pretended to leave Naruto's house. Upon hearing Naruto talking to the pendant, he turned back. After confirming once more that the kunai pendant was alright, the third Hokage sighed softly in relief and finally left. Naruto's self-talk wasn't due to any ninja acting in secret since it was genuinely a result of his loneliness. It seemed he needed to arrange a few friends for Naruto, and the two boys from the Inuzuka clan would be good candidates. After the third Hokage left, Naruto said to Black Zetsu, "Old Man Black, how come Hokage Grandpa didn't discover you? Weren't you hiding in this kunai pendant?" Black Zetsu scoffed and replied, "Hey. How could a mere Kage-level shinobi detect me? But your Hokage Grandpa does seem to care about you. He came to check on you yesterday and again today." Naruto didn't catch the implication in Black Zetsu's words and nodded, saying, "Hokage Grandpa has always been good to me since he just doesn't have much time because he's busy with work. But he checked on you yesterday and again today since that's indeed a bit strange. Is Hokage Grandpa not usually very busy?" Seeing Naruto lost in thought, Black Zetsu chuckled and said, "Maybe he really is too busy with his duties. But your Hokage Grandpa is so good to you since you should repay him well in the future." "Of course. I will definitely repay Hokage Grandpa." After a pause, Naruto said to Black Zetsu, "But let's not talk about Hokage Grandpa. You still haven't finished the story you started yesterday since those ninja stories are so interesting and fun. Those aren't just stories since they are things I have witnessed myself. Things from hundreds of years ago are all pretty much the same since anyway, I'm just listening casually since it doesn't really relate to me." Chapter 218, Naruto, you should reflect on your own issues. After spending a few days together, Naruto and Black Zetsu became close friends, sharing everything with each other. This outcome was anticipated by Black Zetsu. With an orphan like Naruto, who lived alone, it only took a little show of kindness for him to trust someone wholeheartedly. All of this was thanks to the upper echelons of Hidden Leaf Village. Without them, it would have been quite challenging to approach the reincarnation of Ashura. Every reincarnation of Ashura naturally possesses an optimistic mindset and a powerful affinity for others. No matter how gifted Indra's reincarnations might be, they ultimately fall to the power of companionship. This was the reason why the original Indra lost to Ashura, and it was also the favoritism shown by Kaguya Otsutsuki. That ungrateful child, who betrayed his mother, chose to live among humans. He repeatedly interfered in the competition between Ashura and Indra, causing his plans to fail time and again, a truly heinous crime, unforgivable in nature. However, things were about to take a turn. This time, he was not relying on Indra's reincarnation. Instead, he had found more like-minded subordinates to carry out the Eye of the Moon plan, even recruiting the reincarnation of Ashura into it. With this thought in mind, Black Zetsu looked at the peacefully sleeping Naruto, a subtle smile forming on his lips. After a dreamless night, Naruto opened his sleepy eyes, softly greeted the kunai pendant with a few good mornings, and quietly began to prepare breakfast. Breakfast was merely a bowl of instant noodles. Living alone and never having learned to cook, Naruto relied on instant noodles for all his meals, occasionally going out to fish to improve his diet. Today, he had woken up early. Usually, he didn't even eat breakfast. Seeing this scene, Black Zetsu furrowed his brows. It was no wonder Naruto was shorter than his peers, he wasn't eating properly. If this continued, would he end up malnourished and weakened in combat? That wouldn't do since it could jeopardize the Eye of the Moon plan and, in turn, affect his mother's rescue. With that in mind, Black Zetsu said to Naruto, "Naruto, is this all you eat every day? This lack of nutrition won't do as you'll end up even smaller than the others." Naruto chuckled, "I don't know how to cook anything else, and instant noodles are really tasty and easy to make. If you weren't stuck in that pendant, you'd probably like them too." Black Zetsu was momentarily taken aback. He wanted to refute Naruto but couldn't find the right words. As the last descendant of Kaguya Otsutsuki, he was fundamentally different from his two brothers, who inherited most of their mother's power, a force capable of destroying the world. He, on the other hand, was merely a product created by his mother's bloodline net, a more unique creation. Due to his special body structure, he only needed to rely on photosynthesis to meet his life requirements. His understanding of food was limited to what he had learned from past Ashuras and Byakuya. He had no idea what instant noodles actually tasted like, but other kids didn't seem to treat their meals as casually as Naruto did. Remaining silent, Black Zetsu watched as Naruto finished his noodles and went to the bathroom. Taking advantage of the Anbu outside being distracted, he quickly took a sip of the noodle soup, and his eyes lit up. This instant noodle was indeed delicious, no wonder little Naruto ate them every day. For the past 1,000 years, Black Zetsu had been tirelessly working to lift his mother's seal, completely forgetting to take a look at the bustling shinobi world. He wondered if his mother, sealed on the moon, would appreciate it. After Naruto returned from the bathroom, Black Zetsu reattached himself to Naruto's body, whispering a few words into his ear. Naruto picked up the kunai pendant from the table, put it around his neck, and stepped outside. To be honest, Naruto didn't want to go out since the outside world was full of malice towards him. However, under Black Zetsu's strong insistence, he forced himself to step out of the door. Walking alone down the street, he felt the cold, indifferent gazes of passers-by upon him, which made him extremely anxious. But Black Zetsu, now inhabiting Naruto, was very excited. He looked at the bustling crowd and the dazzling array of goods, mentally noting their appearances. Spotting a wooden comb, Black Zetsu said in Naruto's ear, "Naruto, I'm interested in that comb over there. Go ask how much it costs." Naruto hesitated, looking at the comb. "Old man Black, I have very little pocket money, and the owner might not even sell it to me. Just try it. You won't know unless you ask." Impatient with Naruto's indecisiveness, Black Zetsu urged him on. Hearing this, Naruto steeled himself and approached the vendor to inquire about the price. When the vendor noticed it was Naruto asking, his expression turned even more indifferent. "Hey kid, are you thinking of stealing something?" "I'm not." Naruto shook his head. "I came here to buy something." "Buy something? Are you interested in this comb?" The vendor glanced at Naruto, then coldly continued, "This comb is really cheap, only 1,000 ryo. Can you afford that?" 1,000 ryo. Naruto was taken aback, stunned by the price of the comb. His monthly living expenses were only 50,000 ryo, approximately 50,000 yen, and this comb cost 1,000 ryo. Was the vendor trying to cheat him? Upon hearing the vendor's price, Black Zetsu frowned as well. While he was unsure about the prices in the shinobi world, he could tell from Naruto's expression that he was being taken advantage of. This made Black Zetsu quite unhappy. How dare anyone bully his subordinate? Feeling dejected, Naruto left the street and ended up in a nearby park, where a few children his age were playing ninja games. As soon as they saw Naruto approaching, they stopped their game, staring at him with eyes that seemed to say, "You're a freak, get out of our park." With the kids watching him, Naruto had no choice but to leave again. Wandering around, he finally made his way to the riverbank. This was the only place without other adults or children, completely belonging to him alone. Sitting on a large stone by the shore, Naruto scratched the dirt with a stick, murmuring, "Why is it different from what Grandpa Hokage said? Why do they always bully me?" Seeing Naruto in such a pitiful state, Black Zetsu several times felt like telling him to fight back. The ninjas he had encountered before, whether they were Ashura's reincarnation or Byakuya, had countless ways to bully others and would never allow themselves to be harassed. Even the kindest Obito would get angry when it came to core interests. But Ashura's reincarnation, Naruto, was different, as this was a complete insult to the Otsutsuki bloodline. The Otsutsuki were inherently proud individuals. Once he calmed down, Black Zetsu recalled Byakuya's advice and said to Naruto, "It takes two hands to clap, Naruto. You should reflect on your own issues." Chapter 219, Naruto gradually going off track. A hand can't clap without the other. I should reflect on my own issues? Upon hearing this, Naruto's eyes widened in shock. He never expected Black Zetsu to say such a thing. They were friends, weren't they? Shouldn't he be on Naruto's side? Since birth, Naruto hadn't done anything particularly wrong. Why was he treated with disdain by the villagers? He never asked for any special treatment, all he wanted was to be seen as a normal person. Why was that so difficult? In that moment, a surge of strong resentment filled Naruto, and his fists clenched tightly. However, both Grandpa Hokage, who treated him well, and Old Man Black were saying the same thing. Maybe he really did have issues. He shouldn't have left home without permission, and he shouldn't be on the streets affecting others' moods. Releasing his tightly clenched fists, Naruto forced a smile and said to Black Zetsu, "Old Man Black, what should I do to earn the villagers' recognition?" Black Zetsu looked into Naruto's eyes and replied, "It's been hundreds of years since my time, so I don't know exactly what you should do. But you can consult your Hokage, since he should know what to do." "Consult Hokage Grandpa." Naruto took Black Zetsu's words to heart and continued to wander along the riverbank. When the third Hokage arrived again, Naruto curiously asked, "Grandpa Hokage, what do you think I need to do to gain the village's recognition?" Hearing this, the third Hokage smiled, ruffled Naruto's hair, and sent someone to the library to fetch a few books. The thick books had golden letters embossed on the cover, titled The Will of Fire. Handing the book to Naruto, the third Hokage said with a smile, "Gaining the villagers' recognition is quite simple. Just read this book and follow its teachings strictly. The people of the village are good at heart. So, as long as you treat them sincerely, they will respond in kind." Naruto nodded, somewhat understanding. "Hokage Grandpa, I will read this book carefully because I really want everyone's recognition. I want to be their friend." Seeing this, the third Hokage felt a warm happiness in his heart. Naruto was so kind, He would definitely gain the recognition of others and become the protector of the village as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. As for whether the will of fire would truly be effective, even the Hokage himself wasn't certain. After the third Hokage left, Naruto eagerly opened the will of fire and began to read earnestly. Black Zetsu was also intrigued and leaned over Naruto's shoulder to look at the content. After glancing through it, Black Zetsu rolled his eyes. Wasn't this just the same old doctrine from the ninja sect back in the day? The Sage of Six Paths liked to play this game as well and distributed chakra to everyone in the ninja sect. At that time, the ninja sect was an organization dedicated to helping everyone. Yet, less than a few decades after the sage's death, the ninja world began to fracture along clan lines. If it hadn't been for Hashirama Senju emerging decades ago, the number of nations in the ninja world would have at least multiplied tenfold by now. But this was also part of his and Byakuya's plan. Where the leaves dance, the fire continues to burn. Seeing this phrase from the Will of Fire, Naruto couldn't help but read it aloud. He then turned to Black Zetsu and asked, "Old Man Black, what does this sentence mean? I don't quite understand its significance." Black Zetsu glanced at Naruto and said with a blank expression, "It's quite simple. It means that the older generation will protect the new one. Even when faced with danger, they rush in to sacrifice themselves, leaving hope for the next generation." Naruto smiled innocently, "I get it. It means that if I'm in danger, Grandpa Hokage and you, Old Man Black, would sacrifice yourselves to protect me, right?" Black Zetsu was taken aback by the statement, feeling an odd resemblance to Byakuya's words. "No, why should I sacrifice my life to protect this brat? Please, we're not that close. I just want to use you." After suppressing his thoughts, Black Zetsu replied helplessly, "I don't have that kind of resolve, but your Hokage definitely does. To protect the new generation in the village, he would surely be willing to sacrifice himself. I think Grandpa Hokage would do that too." Naruto nodded but then looked at Black Zetsu with a puzzled expression. "But Old Man Black, do you have something against Grandpa Hokage? I feel like your tone is a bit off." Seeing that his thoughts were exposed by this little brat, Black Zetsu's expression darkened. "You misheard me. I'm just feeling inadequate. After seeing the content of the Will of Fire, it feels like my spirit has undergone a kind of evolution." Naruto was relentless. "I still feel something's off. Are you trying to deceive me?" Black Zetsu waved his hands repeatedly. "A little brat like you shouldn't overthink things. Even if I were to deceive you, would your Hokage deceive you? Just follow what it says and don't disturb my rest." "I got it. I'll read quietly." After spending a week, Naruto finally finished reading the Will of Fire. After absorbing the cases and annotations from the past Hokage, Naruto felt like he had experienced a spiritual awakening. Next came the practice of the Will of Fire. With a bold spirit and unwavering determination, Naruto stepped out of his home, already envisioning himself gaining the villagers' recognition and becoming Hokage. However, not long after leaving home, Naruto faced significant setbacks. After running into obstacles multiple times, he returned home and lay on his bed, looking at the kunai pendant and said, "Old Man Black, they all said they don't need my help and want me to get lost and not disturb their business." Seeing Naruto's dejection, Black Zetsu rubbed his forehead and replied, "Maybe your way of communicating is the problem? Or perhaps you're not sincere enough? The Will of Fire doesn't lie, and your Hokage wouldn't deceive you either. If these methods truly had issues, your Hokage wouldn't have become Hokage in the first place. Old Man Black, you're right. I shouldn't give up after a small setback." After saying that, Naruto gathered his courage once again, left home, and continued to look for people in need of help. Once Naruto had left, Black Zetsu took advantage of the moment when the Anbu had departed and quickly wrote a letter, instructing White Zetsu to deliver it to the Akatsuki organization. The training plan for Naruto was progressing smoothly, but the key issues still required Byakuya's oversight. Chapter 220, Jiraiya and Orochimaru inside the Akatsuki office. After placing a cup of brewed coffee on the table, Byakuya opened the first letter sent by Black Zetsu. The contents were quite simple. After 2 weeks of interaction, Black Zetsu had already gained Naruto's initial trust. Now his standing in Naruto's eyes was now comparable to that of the third Hokage. This was entirely expected by Byakuya. Having been an orphan himself, he understood what orphans truly needed. Although Black Zetsu's methods were somewhat rough, they were within a controllable range, which pleased Byakuya. He silently praised him as one of the hidden hands in the ninja world, as he certainly had some skill. As for why he didn't let Black Zetsu teach Naruto about the darker side of the ninja arts and lead him down a path of destruction. A completely fallen Nine-Tails Jinchuriki could pose a significant threat to Hidden Lee Village and even the entire ninja world. The reason was simple: Akatsuki was an organization that loved peace. While some members within the organization might secretly plot world-ending plans like the Moon Eye Plan, their motives stemmed from a desire for global harmony. As long as Black Zetsu instilled the ideals of truth, goodness, and beauty in Naruto, he would eventually stand on their side. After all, the ninjas who strictly followed the will of fire were, aside from the first Hokage, mostly idealistic lower-ranked ninjas who selflessly devoted themselves. The higher-ups in Hidden Leaf Village did not believe in such notions. Retrieving his drifting thoughts, Byakuya casually wrote down some suggestions for Black Zetsu to pass on and then shifted his focus to other important matters. For example, the ongoing issues with the Hidden Hot Water Village. Thanks to the persistent efforts of Yahiko and Konan, Hidden Hot Water Village had also been integrated into the mutual assistance system established by Akatsuki, reaching several cooperative agreements with its allied nation, Hidden Rain Village. The collaboration between a resource-rich country and an industrial nation yielded results greater than the sum of their parts. However, despite the pleasant cooperation between Hidden Hot Water Village and Hidden Rain Village, a significant problem loomed ahead that needed immediate resolution. That was the issue of distance. Hidden Rain Village lay to the northwest of the Land of Fire, while Hidden Hot Water Village was to the northeast. The two were separated by over 1,000 kilometers, with several smaller ninja nations in between. For Hidden Rain Village to develop a closer collaboration with Hidden Hot Water Village, they had to consider the influence of these smaller ninja villages. If any of these villages chose to obstruct them, their commercial activities would suffer severely. The smaller nations in question included Hidden Grass Village, Land of Mountains, and Land of Rice Fields. Hidden Grass Village had long-standing grievances with Hidden Rain Village and was a village that needed to be dealt with. It also housed Hidden Mist Village's infamous Hazuki Castle, which imprisoned several high-level fugitives. Considering the international ramifications, Akatsuki couldn't simply strike at Hidden Grass Village directly. They could only look for ways to exploit the conflicts between Hidden Grass Village and Hazuki Castle, hoping to foster a proxy. Hidden Waterfall Village was an obscure village that mainly engaged in missions. It had little activity otherwise. The Seven Tails residing in Hidden Waterfall Village was something that Akatsuki needed to secure. Only by capturing all the tailed beasts could they resurrect the 10 tails and initiate the infinite Tsukahime plan. However, due to the existence of the Seven Tails, Akatsuki currently couldn't take action. At this point, the only viable target seemed to be Land of Rice Fields, which only contained a small ninja village called Hidden Sound Village, Sound Ninja Village. And it never existed until Orochimaru founded it. So, author here is making this detail up. This village, established by elite ninjas, had a total of only a few dozen people, including its leader. For Byakuya, incorporating Hidden Sound Village wasn't a difficult task, but the name reminded him of one of the legendary Sannin of Hidden Leaf Village, Orochimaru. He had intentionally left Hidden Sound Village as bait, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Unfortunately, it had already been several months since Orochimaru's defection, and he hadn't made any significant moves in the ninja world. If it weren't for knowing the bond between the third Hokage and Orochimaru, he might even suspect that Orochimaru had died under the third Hokage's rod. At that moment, an Akatsuki member rushed into the office, holding a scroll in hand. Byakuya looked up at the member and asked indifferently, "Is there important intelligence? I remember you were specifically tasked with gathering information about Jiraiya." The Akatsuki member nodded and handed the scroll to Byakuya. Byakuya opened the scroll, his eyes narrowing as he read the detailed movements of Jiraiya and the information regarding Jiraiya's efforts to gather intel on Orochimaru from the black market. With this in mind, Byakuya began to contemplate leaving Hidden Rain Village. Rather than waiting idly in Hidden Rain Village for Orochimaru to appear, it would be more effective to actively seek out Jiraiya and, through him, find Orochimaru. After a month of effort, Jiraiya finally discovered Orochimaru's whereabouts through his intelligence network. To locate Orochimaru, Jiraiya frequently ventured into the red light districts, risking exposure to the dangers of his past, and eventually learned of Orochimaru's specific location. Using Genjutsu to control a wandering ninja in the black market, Jiraiya concealed himself inside a toad's belly, instructing the ninja to guide him to Orochimaru's location. Before long, Jiraiya halted, his gaze fixated on a feminine young man standing along the road ahead. Though this young man bore no resemblance to Orochimaru, transformation techniques could deceive the eyes, but chakra and instincts would not lie. Emerging from the toad's belly, Jiraiya stared intently at the feminine young man and said, "Orochimaru, drop the transformation technique. Your jutsu can't fool my eyes." The young man let out a soft sigh, then dispelled the transformation with a complex expression, saying, "So it's you, Jiraiya. Did the old man send you here to kill me? Ha! I never thought our bond would be so fragile. It's truly disheartening, isn't it? The old man sent someone to hunt you down?" Jiraiya frowned, struggling to believe that the third Hokage would send someone to kill Orochimaru, who was once his most prized student. However, thinking it over, He realized that Orochimaru was now a rogue ninja, and chasing rogue ninjas was an obligation for all Hidden Leaf Village ninjas. Taking a deep breath, Jiraiya spoke slowly, "I'm not here to kill you. I want you to come back. When you return, I'll plead for you in front of the old man. As long as you promise not to continue conducting human experiments in the village, you're still one of us." At these words, Orochimaru chuckled softly. "If I can't explore the limits of ninjutsu, I might as well be killed. You don't truly understand what I'm thinking. Only a fool like you would foolishly remain in the village." Orochimaru's words struck Jiraiya like a poisoned dart, igniting a surge of nameless rage within him. "Orochimaru, I'll say this one last time. I must bring you back today, even if it's just to retrieve your corpse. I can't watch you make these mistakes any longer. You mean to say you can kill me whenever you like?" Orochimaru frowned, feeling belittled by Jiraiya's words, which only fueled his irritation. Forming hand seals, he lunged toward Jiraiya, initiating a battle. Chapter 221, The Meeting Between Byakuya and Orochimaru. Ninjutsu, Hidden Shadow Snake Hands. Ninjutsu, Needle Jizo. With two low shouts, Jiraiya and Orochimaru clashed. One transformed his limbs into venomous snakes for offense, while the other hardened his hair as a defensive shield. Despite their fierce words, both held back during the fight, each cautious not to truly injure the other. Their jutsu were all flash and little substance, like a thunderstorm without rain. Realizing he couldn't gain the upper hand, Orochimaru scoffed, "Jiraiya, it seems your skills haven't improved much over the years. If it weren't for the support of Hidden Rain Village, winning this war wouldn't have been so easy for you. Of course, my disciple is definitely stronger than yours." He stopped, his expression shifting. "Orochimaru, don't change the subject. Ever since you refused to return to the village, we've been enemies." "Enemies, huh?" Orochimaru smirked, amused by Jiraiya's innocence. Yet Jiraiya had grown much stronger than before. Considering that his own injuries hadn't fully healed, if the battle dragged on, he might actually lose. Losing to anyone else would be acceptable, but losing to Jiraiya was simply intolerable. With that thought, Orochimaru bit his finger, smeared his blood on the ground, and shouted, summoning jutsu. In an instant, a massive snake the size of a small mountain appeared in the forest. Seeing Orochimaru summon Manda, Jiraiya bit his own finger, formed hand seals, and summoned Gamabunta, the strongest toad from Mount Myabaku. The two colossal beasts glared at each other, then asked their masters, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, who is the enemy this time? Both replied in unison, "The enemy is Jiraiya, Orochimaru." Hearing this, Gamabunta and Manda looked at each other in confusion, wondering if the two were playing a joke on them. "Aren't you two childhood friends? You've been through decades together. Don't drag us into your squabbles." Jiraiya explained to Gamabunta, "Orochimaru recently defected and is now a rogue ninja to the village. Show no mercy." Jiraiya's words reached Manda's ears, and the hot-tempered serpent snarled, "What's that supposed to mean, Jiraiya? You think the toads of Mount Myabaku can match me?" With that, Manda lunged furiously at Gamabunta, and the two titanic creatures clashed, sending shockwaves rippling through the forest, leveling vast areas around them. With their summoned beasts locked in battle, Jiraiya and Orochimaru resumed their own fight without hesitation. From taijutsu to ninjutsu, and then from ninjutsu to ganjutsu, the continuous rounds of combat began to bore Orochimaru. He wasn't here to spar endlessly with Jiraiya, and if things dragged on like this, he knew he'd ultimately be defeated. Taking advantage of a moment when Jiraiya let down his guard, Orochimaru used the Great Snake Substitution technique to evade Jiraiya's attack. Immediately afterward, he produced a Kusanagi sword from his mouth and thrust it toward Jiraiya. The Kusanagi sword was a rare and famous weapon in the ninja world, capable of cutting through steel when infused with chakra. Closing in on Jiraiya, Orochimaru used the Kusanagi to slice through Jiraiya's hair. As he prepared to aim for Jiraiya's head, he hesitated momentarily, then redirected the blade towards Jiraiya's arm. Realizing the danger, Jiraiya dodged quickly, but not quickly enough to avoid a cut on his arm. "I can't underestimate you, Orochimaru," Jiraiya said, stepping back and wiping the blood from his arm. Forming hand seals, he continued, "Looks like I'll need Sage Mode to take you down for good." Just as he was preparing to use Sage Mode, Jiraiya's arm suddenly went numb. Looking down, he noticed the wound had turned dark purple. "Orochimaru, you coated the sword with poison." Orochimaru looked at Jiraiya coldly and said, "Using poison on the battlefield is perfectly ordinary. Since we're now enemies, I'll naturally use every means against you. I hope you remember this lesson." With that, Orochimaru tossed a vial of antidote toward Jiraiya and disappeared into the depths of the forest. After driving Manda away, Gamabunta came to Jiraiya's side, observing his pale face. Though Orochimaru's poison wasn't deadly, it was enough to weaken Jiraiya substantially. "Jiraiya, you don't look well. Should we go see Tsunade?" Jiraiya shook his head, opening the antidote that Orochimaru had left behind. "No need. Orochimaru already gave me the antidote." With a sigh, he continued, "After all these years, I still can't seem to catch up to him." Ignoring Jiraiya's words about the antidote, Gamabunta frowned and asked, "Are you sure about taking an antidote from Orochimaru? He's our enemy now." Jiraiya gave a helpless smile. "If Orochimaru really wanted to kill me, he could have done it just now. He wouldn't need to disguise poison as an antidote." Seeing Jiraiya's decision to trust Orochimaru, Gamabunta held his peace. Fortunately, as rivals, Mount Mayabaku and Rishi Cave already had a tense relationship, so Gamabunta had no qualms about taking on Manda, even wanting to defeat him outright. After taking the antidote, Jiraiya began to feel better. Glancing once more in the direction Orochimaru had fled, he sighed, deciding not to pursue him. Orochimaru had shown mercy, and it wouldn't be right to keep chasing him. He'd wait for another chance in the future. Without Orochimaru to track, he felt his schedule open up and considered traveling across the ninja world to see what changes had come to it over the years. Several dozen kilometers away, Orochimaru sped through the forest. Although he had managed to defeat Jiraiya by exploiting Jiraiya's reluctance to kill him, he knew that once Jiraiya recovered, the chase would begin anew. Yet, to kill Jiraiya and sever their bond was something he still couldn't bring himself to do. Jiraiya was the third Hokage's only remaining disciple in the village. If Jiraiya died, the third would be devastated, and life would be far less enjoyable. Suddenly, Orochimaru sensed something and stopped. Standing on a tree branch, he looked ahead and noticed a young figure perched on another branch, observing him with a curious gaze. Orochimaru recognized this young ninja immediately. It was none other than Byakuya of the Akatsuki. Chapter 222, Recruiting Orochimaru. From the first moment Orochimaru laid eyes on Byakuya, a sense of alarm filled his mind. He instinctively took a few steps back to keep a safe distance. This seemingly cheerful young man was anything but kind. Heck, he was more like a cunning old fox. In a few short years, he had not only allied with the Akatsuki members to bring down Henzo the Salamander from his position as the leader of Hidden Rain Village, but he also managed to fight the fourth Raikage to a draw, single-handedly halting the war between Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Clouds Village and even bringing Hidden Hotwater Village under his control. Such astonishing achievements meant that, despite being one of the legendary Sannin, Orochimaru wouldn't dare to underestimate him. Thinking back to his first encounter with Byakuya years ago, Orochimaru even felt his former self had been too naive, imagining that he could control such a monster. Though he still had some contact with Byakuya in secret, could people like them truly rely on friendship? At that moment, Byakuya leapt down from a branch and, walking towards Orochimaru, said with a smile, "Isn't this Orochimaru, Hidden Lee Village's S-class rogue ninja? Seems like I'm in luck today, I might just make a fortune." Orochimaru's heart sank, though he maintained a calm expression as he replied, "Byakuya, surely you jest. Even though I'm Hidden Lee Village's S-class rogue ninja, don't you also secretly have connections with Denzo? Are you threatening me?" Byakuya's eyes flashed with displeasure, and he slowly pulled out a kunai, saying, "I detest being threatened, and you've just fought Jiraiya, right? You probably don't have much chakra left. So, if I catch you now and turn you into Hidden Lee Village, how much do you think I'd make?" Hearing this, Orochimaru thought, as expected, that their encounter wasn't by chance but a premeditated move. If he had truly been severely injured in a fight with Jiraiya, both of them would probably have ended up in Byakuya's hands. With this realization, Orochimaru frowned and said, "What is it that you want, Byakuya? If you truly intended to act, you wouldn't have waited until now." Byakuya nodded, saying, as expected of Orochimaru, seeing through my thoughts so easily. "I don't actually harbor much killing intent towards you. I sought you out this time because, after you left Hidden Lee Village, I wanted to invite you to join Akatsuki." "Akatsuki?" Orochimaru squinted slightly. He had heard of this group before. Wasn't it the organization Jiraiya's 3 students had established? Orochimaru had once considered joining, but given that Akatsuki was founded by Jiraiya's students, it would be dangerous to join with his current status. Seeing Orochimaru's hesitation, Byakuya smiled and said, "Don't worry. Currently, I'm the leader of Akatsuki and the true ruler of both Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Hotwater Village. If you're willing to join Akatsuki, I'll ensure that Yahiko and the others never find out." Hearing this, Orochimaru felt slightly tempted. For months he had been on the run, pursued by Hidden Lee Village's Anbu and Denzo's root ninjas. He had also earned a fair share of enemies during his time as a front-line commander, many of whom had sent assassins after him. Although none of them could kill him, they could hinder his recovery. However, he reminded himself that he left Hidden Leaf Village to live a life of complete freedom, not bound to anyone else's control. Joining another organization now would defeat the purpose. Byakuya, given my status as a rogue ninja, joining Akatsuki might bring negative effects to Hidden Rain Village. Moreover, I don't wish to be bound by any constraints, so, before he could finish, he noticed Byakuya's expression change. The smile vanished from Byakuya's face, replaced by a chilling coldness. Stepping towards Orochimaru, he said, I apologize, Orochimaru, but I'm not asking for your opinion. This is an ultimatum. With your current strength, I don't think you're in a position to refuse me. With that, Byakuya vanished from sight, soaring into the air as explosive tags began to rain down toward the ground. Explosive tags rained down like a torrential shower, forming mushroom clouds across the ground, and the powerful shockwaves whipped around Orochimaru, sending his robes flapping wildly. Without giving him any time to react, Byakuya took advantage of the chaos. Slamming his hands onto the ground, thick vines sprouted up instantly, winding tightly around Orochimaru and absorbing his chakra. Already weakened, Orochimaru had no chance to resist and quickly became a captive. Witnessing Byakuya's actions from start to finish, Orochimaru was shocked beyond words. He had known Byakuya was strong enough to hold his own against the fourth Raikage, a monster comparable to Minato. But he hadn't realized Byakuya was so powerful that he couldn't even put up a fight. Using the paper style alone was impressive enough, but when had Byakuya also mastered wood style? This was the legendary first Hokage's bloodline limit, thought to be lost to the shinobi world for decades. Although Hidden Leaf Village had conducted extensive experiments with Hashirama cells over the past 10 years, only one wood style user, Tenzo, had emerged. Now, right before him, Byakuya was using wood style with apparent ease. With this realization, Orochimaru suddenly understood a great deal. It explained why Akatsuki was able to defeat Hanzo and seize control of Hidden Rain Village, why Byakuya carried himself with such confidence, and why he was brave enough to befriend both Jiraiya and the third Hokage. The reason was simple: Byakuya possessed Kage-level strength from the start, perhaps even surpassing the average Kage. Orochimaru refocused, looking back at Byakuya, now with a mix of respect and a growing curiosity. Byakuya's display of wood style gave him a reason to join Akatsuki that he could not ignore. Whatever Byakuya's intentions in recruiting him, Orochimaru now had his own motives, to get close to Byakuya and study him. Such a rare and powerful specimen didn't come along often. If he could unlock Byakuya's secrets, he might uncover the true limits of ninjutsu. Walking up to him, Byakuya smiled slightly and asked, Orochimaru, have you calmed down now? Will you choose to become my subordinate, or do you still wish to resist? Orochimaru stared at Byakuya without hesitation and replied, I'll join Akatsuki, but as a condition, I want to study you. You're hiding too many secrets. Oh? Interested in me? Byakuya chuckled, nodding lightly. If there's ever a time when I'm injured, you're free to collect my blood. But I'm not easily hurt. Chapter 223, Akatsuki's objective. After Byakuya agreed to Orochimaru's condition, Orochimaru joined the Akatsuki without hesitation. He was already intrigued by the organization, and members like Kakazu and Sasori of the Red Sand presented excellent research subjects. Besides, refusing the offer would likely mean he wouldn't leave this forest alive. Until his reanimation jutsu was perfected, Byakuya could kill him completely, denying even the chance of resurrection. Once the deal was made, Orochimaru eyed Byakuya curiously and asked, Leader, aren't you a member of the Uzumaki clan? How did you suddenly master the first Hokage's wood style? Byakuya glanced at Orochimaru and replied nonchalantly, There's a history of intermarriage between the Uzumaki and Senju clans. While the probability of awakening wood style is extremely low, it's not entirely impossible. Well, Orochimaru-senpai, are you annoyed that wood style didn't appear in Hidden Leaf Village? Orochimaru held back a sigh at Byakuya's dismissive response. He knew full well that there had been frequent marriages between the Uzumaki and Senju, but even the first Hokage's descendants hadn't awakened wood style. Not even Obirama, whom he admired, could solve that puzzle. If it were so easy to awaken, the Senju clan wouldn't have been forced to disband. Orochimaru thought back to his first disciple, Nawaki, Tsunada's younger brother and the first Hokage's grandson. If Nawaki had inherited wood style, he might not have died in battle from an explosive tag. Byakuya then continued, Hidden Leaf Village's wood style research has always been flawed. By transplanting Hashirama cells, it's true that ninjas can gain wood style, but the average shinobi can't withstand the backlash from those cells. Hearing Byakuya bring up the topic of wood style experiments, Orochimaru's interest was instantly piqued. While he wasn't sure where Byakuya had acquired the data, he knew Byakuya, as a genuine wood-style user, understood it better than anyone. Backlash from Hashirama cells is indeed a major problem. The village has tried raising young test subjects to adapt to the cell's violent nature, but the success rate remains very low. So, do you have any reliable solutions? Byakuya gave him a sidelong glance and replied, "Of course I do, but why would I share it with you? You haven't done anything for the organization yet, and you're already asking for top-level secrets. Why should I trust you?" Orochimaru was momentarily taken aback. Byakuya had a point. He hadn't turned Byakuya's trust yet. But the thought of an unknown, more efficient method for transplanting wood style gnawed at him like an itch he couldn't scratch. Byakuya, noticing his eagerness, offered, "If you're willing to owe me 3 favors, I'll tell you the solution." 3 favors? Orochimaru hesitated briefly, then nodded in agreement. Byakuya, no longer hiding his knowledge, explained the method discovered later by Orochimaru and Denzo. Wood style is a Kekkei Genkai formed by combining earth and water style, but I believe it actually verges on a 3-element fusion. The third element is yang release. This strong life force in yang release invades the body of the transplantee, overwhelming them with rampant energy, often resulting in death. The solution is simple, having enough yin release chakra to counterbalance it. Yin release chakra? Orochimaru nodded, half understanding. However, the sheer potency of the yang element in wood style posed a problem. There were hardly any shinobi in the world capable of standing up to it. Byakuya continued, his tone calm and detached, "Don't even bother trying. Only the Sharingan can neutralize the wild force of Hashirama cells, and only if it's at least at the 3 Tomoe or Mengekyo level. 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Quite the strict requirement." Hearing this, Orochimaru was struck with a realization. Ironically, the best candidates for Hashirama cells were none other than the Senju's historical rivals, the Uchiha. No wonder Hidden Leaf Village's experiments had stalled. Uchiha members, the ideal candidates, never had the chance to participate. It made sense. The elders and Denzo would never risk involving the Uchiha in the wood-style experiments. If an Uchiha perished during testing, that would be one thing. But if a 3 Tomoe Uchiha managed to successfully wield wood-style, Hidden Leaf Village could soon become Uchiha territory. Of course, just because the village elders wouldn't act didn't mean he couldn't. Should he encounter a suitable Uchiha in the future, he would capture them to see firsthand the success rate of Uchiha with wood-style transplants. Seeing Orochimaru's scheming expression, Byakuya interjected, "Don't bother targeting the Uchiha. They'll eventually join our side. Some in their clan are already extremely powerful, beyond your current ability to handle." Byakuya's words contained a wealth of information that made Orochimaru's eyes gleam. First, Byakuya had intentions for the Uchiha clan, planning to bring them into the Akatsuki. This explained his cooperation with Shizue to take down the Two Tails. Byakuya possessed the means for wood-style transplants, and the Uchiha were ideal candidates. If Uchiha shinobi with 3 Tomoe Sharingan gained wood style, their power would skyrocket. Second, there were Uchiha outside of Hidden Leaf Village. Finally, the Akatsuki's increasing allies and expanding influence hinted at a grand design for reshaping the entire shinobi world, though the details were unclear. Clearing his thoughts, Orochimaru took a deep breath and asked, "Thank you, Leader Byakuya, for sharing this knowledge. But there's one thing I still don't understand, what is the ultimate goal of the Akatsuki?" Without hesitation, Byakuya answered, "Akatsuki is dedicated to love and peace, uniting villages and nations in harmony. Our goal is to end all wars and usher in a long-lasting era of peace in the shinobi world." Orochimaru looked at him skeptically, clearly doubtful. He had heard similar idealistic lines countless times before, such rhetoric had no effect on him. Seeing Orochimaru's suspicion, Byakuya shrugged and said with a bit of exasperation, "Why is it so hard for you all to trust the organization's ideals? I've never deceived any of you." "Alright, perhaps I laughed out a few words. Akatsuki is dedicated to love and peace. Our goal is to unite every village and nation under the Akatsuki banner, achieving a world without war, a long-lasting era of peace." This time, Orochimaru understood Byakuya's true ambitions and intentions. Byakuya intended to swallow up the 5 great shinobi villages and become the ruler of the shinobi world. Chapter 224, Special Talent. Scientist of the shinobi world. Upon learning of Byakuya's ambitions and the true goal of the Akatsuki, Orochimaru licked his dry lips. If it were any other rogue ninja in the shinobi world, they might be terrified of Akatsuki's goals. After all, in a way, Akatsuki was setting itself up to oppose the 5 great nations, ultimately becoming an organization that everyone would want to destroy. However, Orochimaru understood that, given Byakuya's planning and Akatsuki's current power, there was indeed a chance they might someday overthrow the 5 great shinobi villages. Even if they couldn't entirely topple the 5 great shinobi villages, they could still plunge the shinobi world into chaos. And chaos often serves as a ladder. Those once high and mighty Kage-level figures might eventually fall, becoming nothing more than material for experiments. As Orochimaru began envisioning the future, Byakuya suddenly heard a crisp, electronic notification in his mind. Orochimaru has joined Akatsuki. You have acquired a special talent, Scientist of the Shinobi World. Scientist of the Shinobi World, you possess an extraordinary ability to learn and modify a vast array of jutsu in the Shinobi World. Hearing the system notification, Byakuya was slightly stunned. It was his first time receiving a talent-based reward, and it was this kind of monstrous ability. It seemed Orochimaru indeed had the potential to yield great rewards. As expected, he was the Shinobi world's most brilliant scientist. After claiming the reward, Byakuya felt that all those previously complex and obscure jutsu techniques in his mind suddenly became much clearer. He could even analyze the underlying principles and perform certain modifications. With this newfound ability, he might not need Orochimaru's help to modify the reanimation jutsu on his own. However, instead of investing his energy in research, he preferred to have others do the work. Refocusing his wandering thoughts, Byakuya looked at Orochimaru again and took a ring from his pocket, handing it to him. Orochimaru, this ring is for communication within the organization. It'll also assign you tasks periodically. After infusing the ring with chakra, Orochimaru felt a slight warmth in his finger, and a message appeared before his eyes. Orochimaru looked at the ring and then at Byakuya in the distance. The ring appeared to be technologically advanced, suggesting that there were indeed some cutting-edge scientists within Akatsuki. Perhaps he could even find like-minded researchers there. Noticing Orochimaru's expression, Byakuya said casually, "You'll have plenty of time to study the ring later. For now, I have a mission for you. It can also serve to repay some of the favors you owe me." What mission? Orochimaru was curious about what kind of mission Byakuya would give him. From his understanding of Akatsuki, it was usually missions involving rogue ninja hunts or aiding the 5 great shinobi villages. But since Byakuya was the leader, his orders were bound to be special. Without any hesitation, Byakuya explained, "Do you know Hidden Sound Village, in the land of rice fields? Your mission is to take over Hidden Sound Village, clearing obstacles to connect the trade route between Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Hot Water Village." Hearing this, Orochimaru was momentarily stunned and looked at Byakuya suspiciously. Taking over Hidden Sound Village wasn't a difficult task for him, but the strange part was that he had already planned on taking control of Hidden Sound Village himself. Byakuya's assignment was almost identical to his own goal. Was this mere coincidence? Ignoring Orochimaru's doubts, Byakuya continued, "Orochimaru, after taking over Hidden Sound Village, do not reveal your identity. If you encounter other Akatsuki members, do not expose them as members of the organization. If they wish for you to join Akatsuki, simply accept without revealing our connection." Orochimaru did not object to Byakuya's request and agreed without hesitation. At the same time, Orochimaru quietly wondered what Byakuya was up to. Could it be that the Akatsuki wasn't as unified as it seemed, and that Byakuya's position as the leader was unstable? Did he have a strained relationship with Yahiko, Nagato, and the others? But after some thought, Orochimaru felt it made sense. Hidden Rain Village had a good rapport with Hidden Leaf Village, and if they openly accepted him, a rogue ninja from Hidden Leaf Village, it could rapidly damage relations between the 2 villages. Byakuya noticed the expression on Orochimaru's face and smirked to himself in contempt. Keeping this hidden from Yahiko and the others was only part of it. The real reason was that he didn't want Tobi or Black Zetsu to know. Those 2, with their own hidden agendas, were his true rivals. After recruiting Orochimaru, Byakuya didn't linger any longer. The commotion from their earlier fight had been significant, likely drawing attention from Hidden Leaf Village soon. While Byakuya was confident he could handle any Hidden Leaf Village ninja who came to investigate, he didn't want White Zetsu to find out about his dealings with Orochimaru. Half an hour later, Jiraiya arrived at the spot where Byakuya and Orochimaru had been talking. Initially, Jiraiya hadn't planned on pursuing Orochimaru. Orochimaru had just spared him, and Jiraiya didn't have it in him to chase after him again so soon. But after sensing distant tremors in the ground, Jiraiya couldn't shake the worry that Orochimaru might be in danger. If he managed to save Orochimaru this time, it would even the score between them. Upon reaching the location, Jiraiya saw the forest had been leveled, and his heart sank. Could Orochimaru really be in trouble? If so, what should he do? After searching the area, Jiraiya turned to Game Bunta and asked, "Bunta, you think Orochimaru could really be in trouble?" Game Bunta, holding his pipe, replied, "And wouldn't that be for the best? Orochimaru is a wanted rogue ninja, after all. You feeling sympathy for a traitor?" Jiraiya fell silent, caught in the complexity of his feelings toward Orochimaru. Seeing this, Gamabunta sighed. The bond between Jiraiya and Orochimaru was truly complicated. Just hours ago, they were fighting tooth and nail, and now Jiraiya was worried about him again. Gamabunta thought to himself that things were simpler in Mount Myabaku. Apart from fending off invasions from Rishi Cave, they had few troubles. Noticing Jiraiya's increasingly troubled expression, Gamabunta tried to comfort him, saying, "Jiraiya, don't worry about Orochimaru. You know how he is, he's too stubborn to die, even if you did. These destruction marks could have been left intentionally to throw you off." "Bunta, that does make a lot of sense." Jiraiya scratched his head, and after thinking it over, he added, "But the next time, don't jinx me. This toad sage is far from done for." "I've never been good with words," Gamabunta replied flatly. "If there's nothing else, I'll return to Mount Myabaku. Fukasaku's been waiting for me." "Fukasaku?" Jiraiya seemed to remember something and asked, "By the way, has the great toad sage made any new prophecies?" Gamabunta shook his head. "The great sage has been in a deep sleep for quite a while. When he does wake up, he usually communicates directly with Fukasaku and Shima, and they'll let you know." "I see." Jiraiya sighed, then chose a random direction and walked away. Chapter 225, Jiraiya's curious journey with Orochimaru no longer his target. Jiraiya found himself at a loose end. He wandered across the nations, seeking inspiration for a new book and awaiting missions from the Hokage's office so he could continue contributing to his village. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In those 3 months, Jiraiya had traveled through much of the shinobi world, experiencing various cultures and landscapes. While journeying through the Land of Fire, he encountered Tsunoda, who was traveling with Shizune and drowning in debt due to her gambling habits. When Jiraiya suggested her to return to the village, Tsunoda only responded with a powerful punch. Although Hidden Leaf Village was facing a shortage of capable leadership, Tsunoda still had no intention of returning, let alone participating in the selection for the 5th Hokage. In Tsunoda's mind, the Senju clan had already bled enough for the village. To protect the village her grandfather founded, she had lost her granduncle, her great-uncle, her parents, her brother, and her lover. Even the proud name of the Senju had faded from the shinobi world, with only a few members left. She felt she owed nothing to Hidden Leaf Village, rather, it was Hidden Leaf Village that owed the Senju. Realizing Tsunoda was resolute in her decision not to return, Jiraiya didn't press her, understanding he wasn't in any position to. After all, he himself had left the village under the pretense of pursuing Orochimaru. He couldn't ask Tsunoda to do something he couldn't do himself. Besides, with Tsunoda's status, her presence alone would still have a deterrent effect on the other major villages, even if she wasn't in Hidden Leaf Village. The Senju clan was deeply tied to the village's legacy. After helping Tsunoda pay off her gambling debts, Jiraiya obtained a promise from her to at least visit the village. He then resumed his journey across the nations. While traveling through the Land of Wind, he met a puppet master, and they discussed the concept of fate. The puppet master scoffed at Jiraiya's search for the child of prophecy. The puppet master believed there was no need to seek fate. People should simply accept whatever fate brings, including the inevitability of upcoming wars. If one dies in battle, it's merely bad luck, nothing to complain about. In the remote Hidden Waterfall Village, Jiraiya met a Hidden Waterfall Village teacher. This teacher was instructing children on survival tactics for war, emphasizing that survival offers more hope for the future. This scene reminded Jiraiya of the time he spent teaching Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan. Back then, Orochimaru had initially wanted to kill Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan to put an end to their suffering in the war-torn world, but in the end, it was Jiraiya who noticed Nagato's Rinnegan and decided to stay, believing he might be the child of prophecy. After 3 years together, he wasn't too hopeful about whether Nagato could fulfill the prophecy. He just wished the children would live well. As he continued his journey, Jiraiya encountered a wandering ninja from the Fuma clan. The Fuma ninja was robbing passing merchants and travelers. After reprimanding the ninja, Jiraiya spared his life, leaving a scar on his forehead as a reminder. Jiraiya wondered why a member of the once great Fuma clan had fallen so low. It seemed that the ninja world wars had devastated many ancient shinobi clans, erasing their legacies from history. Upon reaching the Land of Earth, Jiraiya met a mysterious religious leader. A ring of destitute refugees, clad in rags and visibly malnourished, gathered around the religious leader, who muttered words of prayer to guide them in evading further disaster. Jiraiya knew that prayer alone would not stave off hardship, but he chose not to interfere. This group had lost everything, and taking away their last shred of hope would surely push them over the edge. In a way, the leader's actions reminded him of himself. Was his search for the child of prophecy not also a response to a harsh reality, a final grasp at hope by placing faith in a foretold savior? The difference between them was only superficial. With mixed feelings, Jiraiya left the land of earth and entered the borders of the land of grass. Since the rise of Hidden Rain Village, the space for the land of grass had shrunk, and it could only compete by undercutting prices to attract missions. However, with the growing industrialization of Hidden Rain Village, the life of Hidden Grass Village ninja had become increasingly challenging. At a local bar, Jiraiya encountered a disgruntled grass ninja, drinking heavily and grumbling as he stared out the window. The grass ninja complained about the reasons for his hardships. High client expectations made it impossible to secure contracts, and the prosperity of Hidden Rain Village next door had depressed living standards in Hidden Grass Village. Hearing all this, Jiraiya found himself getting impatient. He joined in the complaining, aided by a few rounds of sake. He lamented the unfairness of the shinobi world. Why did his student, the fourth Hokage, have to die? Why did Orochimaru betray the village? Why had the third Hokage allowed Denzo to stir up so much trouble, letting injustices fester within the village? After the alcohol wore off, Jiraiya nursed a headache, sipping on some sobering tea as he looked toward the land of rain. After so much time spent traveling the shinobi world, he decided it was time to visit Hidden Rain Village. Although Hidden Rain Village was led by Hanzo the Salamander, the village was now effectively managed by his former students. He was curious to see how Yahiko and the others had shaped the village. Yet Jiraiya didn't hold high hopes. Outside the land of fire, most small nations still lived under heavy burdens. The brutal shinobi wars might have ended, but the covert and overt conflicts within the shinobi world were far from over. Ninjas still led precarious lives, scraping by through lethal missions. A few hours later, Jiraiya crossed the border into the land of rain from the land of grass. As he entered, he immediately noticed the differences between the two nations. Though the land of grass had better weather, the contrast at the border was staggering. The roads in the land of grass were muddy trails. Jiraiya himself could navigate them effortlessly, but for ordinary travelers, it was difficult terrain. In the land of rain, however, the roads were paved and smooth concrete. The disparity was a gaping chasm, and Jiraiya grew even more curious about Hidden Rain Village's inner workings. With newfound interest, Jiraiya quickened his pace. Before long, a group of shinobi blocked his path. Leading them was none other than Nagato, who was overseeing the construction projects around Hidden Rain Village. Seeing Jiraiya, Nagato looked up with a puzzled expression. Jiraiya-sensei? Chapter 226, Jiraiya goes to Hidden Rain Village. Jiraiya-sensei? Nagato's voice carried a hint of surprise. Despite Jiraiya's attempt to disguise himself with a transformation jutsu and a straw hat, Nagato recognized his former teacher at once. However, Nagato was somewhat puzzled. Why would Jiraiya be hiding his identity while entering the land of rain? Hearing Nagato call him by name, the rain shinobi around him turned their gaze on Jiraiya. For them, the name Jiraiya wasn't unfamiliar. He wasn't just one of Hidden Lee Village's famed Sanin but also the teacher of several high-ranking members in Hidden Rain Village. Realizing that his disguise had been discovered, Jiraiya dispelled his transformation and scratched his head in slight embarrassment. Nagato, I didn't expect to see you so soon. I thought I'd have to wander around a bit longer before finding you. Glancing at the group behind Nagato, Jiraiya asked curiously, what brings you and all these shinobi here? Are you handling some critical mission? If so, I won't hold you up. Nagato gave a small shake of his head and replied, not exactly. I'm leading my team to maintain the surrounding roads and build a flood drainage channel nearby. Jiraiya's eyes widened in surprise. So you guys are the ones building these paved roads? Looks like the Land of Rain's daimyo is a generous soul, putting in the money to develop these borderlands. Daimyo? Nagato raised an eyebrow in mild confusion. What does the daimyo have to do with this? All roads in the Land of Rain are maintained by Hidden Rain Village itself. At this, Jiraiya blinked, momentarily stunned. Without the daimyo's funding or authorization, where do you get the resources to build roads throughout the Land of Rain? Don't ninja typically work under contracts? Now it was Nagato's turn to look surprised. Why would we need someone else's commission to work? Can't we take on projects ourselves? He added, almost as an afterthought, besides, the Land of Rain hasn't had a daimyo for quite some time. Jiraiya fell silent, piecing things together. It seemed the relationship between Hidden Rain Village and the Land of Rain wasn't what he'd imagined. In Hidden Leaf Village, there was a cooperative relationship between the village and the Fire Country daimyo, but here, it appeared no daimyo existed. After a moment's thought, Jiraiya asked, no daimyo? Do you mean he's missing, or did you? No, Nagato clarified, pausing briefly. When Byakuya visited the daimyo's palace, the daimyo simply stepped down on his own and handed all authority to Hidden Rain Village. Without the daimyo and the nobles draining resources, our country has actually developed quite quickly. At the mention of Byakuya, Jiraiya immediately understood. The daimyo had almost certainly been coerced into abdication. This was not unheard of in the shinobi world. Typically, though, another noble would fill the vacancy. A land entirely free of a ruling noble class was exceedingly rare. Then, as if recalling something, Nagato turned to Jiraiya and said, "By the way, Jiraiya-sensei, you haven't told me your purpose for visiting. Is there something urgent from Hidden Leaf Village that requires cooperation with Hidden Rain Village?" "Not at all," Jiraiya replied. "Since the war ended, I've been traveling the shinobi world. I happened to make my way to the Land of Rain, and I thought I'd pay you all a visit. I was hoping to surprise you." As he looked again at Nagato, Jiraiya felt a wave of emotion wash over him. As time went on, Nagato's strength had grown immensely. Even with Jiraiya's careful attempt at disguising himself, Nagato saw through it with a single glance. Truly worthy of the title Child of Prophecy and wielder of the Rinnegan. Noticing Jiraiya's gaze, Nagato smiled and said, "Since there's no urgent matter, why don't you join us for a bit, Jiraiya-sensei? After we finish patrolling this area, we'll return to the village together." Jiraiya nodded, intrigued to see how Nagato managed his responsibilities firsthand. The patrol lasted most of the day, during which Jiraiya watched Nagato lead his team in widening flood channels with ninjutsu and paving roads with cement techniques. Jiraiya had seen Hidden Leaf Village ninja use similar jutsu before, but Hidden Leaf Village's reach was limited to its immediate village boundaries. They didn't intervene in Fire Country affairs to this extent, nor did they pave roads across the land, let alone into foreign nations like the Land of Rain. Several hours later, with the day's work complete, Nagato led Jiraiya back to Hidden Rain Village. The Hidden Rain Village was a city steeped in a steampunk aesthetic, a stark contrast to Hidden Leaf Village's bright and sunny appearance. It felt more like a vast industrial fortress of steel. As they entered the village, Jiraiya was surprised to notice that nearly every resident could perform some form of ninjutsu. It wasn't an exaggeration to call it a nation of ninja. This realization made him frown slightly. In the shinobi world, becoming a ninja wasn't particularly difficult. Anyone who learned to mold chakra, perform basic jutsu, and handle weapons like kunai could become a genin. However, such entry-level ninja would only serve as cannon fodder in war and wouldn't be suited for professional tasks during peacetime. An overabundance of ninja would mean fewer contracts per individual, reducing overall income and bringing more harm than benefit. For this reason, the 5 great nations, with the exception of Hidden Stone's village, carefully controlled the number of shinobi to maintain a balance. Hidden Rain Village's policy of training all citizens in ninjutsu made Jiraiya wonder if the village might be planning some form of external expansion. The Land of Rain couldn't support so many ninja indefinitely. Still, Yahiko didn't seem like the type who would initiate war. Not long after, they arrived at Hidden Rain Village's central building, where Yahiko and Conan personally greeted Jiraiya, ushering him to a reception room and treating him as a distinguished guest. After some small talk, Jiraiya decided to address his lingering question. "Yahiko, why does Hidden Rain Village have so many ninja?" In Jiraiya's mind, it was better to ask directly than to speculate. Yahiko looked momentarily surprised, then smiled and replied, Jiraiya-sensei, you're probably talking about the villagers who know a bit of ninjutsu. They're not ninja, they're just ordinary people." "Ordinary people? People with ninjutsu can still be considered ordinary?" Jiraiya frowned slightly. Yahiko nodded and continued, "Of course. The ninja profession is that of a mercenary. Those villagers are just tradespeople and laborers. But in the shinobi world, anyone who can perform jutsu is seen as a ninja." Jiraiya paused, then spoke earnestly, "For these ordinary people, knowing ninjutsu might not be as beneficial as it seems." Chapter 227, Jiraiya's Observations for Ordinary People. Learning ninjutsu isn't always a blessing. According to the standard rules of the shinobi world, ninja are not supposed to harm civilians. However, once someone learns even a simple jutsu like the body replacement jutsu, they're viewed as ninja, and the protections they previously had as civilians may no longer apply. Jiraiya felt compelled to warn Yahiko. On one hand, he worried about the safety of the Land of Rain citizens, but he was also concerned about Hidden Rain Village's vision of turning everyone into a ninja. Hearing Jiraiya's concerns, Yahiko gave a wry smile and responded, "Jiraiya-sensei, I understand where you're coming from. But Hidden Rain Village is a small village, and if we're ever invaded, being labeled as ninja is a small price to pay if it means our people can fight back. After all, didn't you teach me, Nagato, and Conan yourself?" Jiraiya fell silent, unsure how to explain the complex feelings behind his initial decision to train them. After a moment, Yahiko continued, "But having the villagers learn basic jutsu isn't only for defense, it's also part of our move toward industrialization." "Industrialization?" Jiraiya repeated, puzzled. He'd never heard this term before. Noticing Jiraiya's confusion, Yahiko explained with a smile, "It's chakra industrialization, an idea proposed by Byakuya. When Hanzo relinquished his position, Byakuya suggested we industrialize. He believes that using ninjutsu only for combat is wasteful. Besides fighting, jutsu can also be applied to infrastructure and heavy industry. Even learning 1 or 2 basic jutsu makes villagers far more efficient at their jobs, allowing them to produce more goods and materials." Jiraiya still didn't fully grasp the concept but sensed that it was something significant. Seeing Jiraiya's discomfort, Conan quickly interjected, "Yahiko, perhaps Jiraiya-sensei is a bit tired. Why don't we give him a tour of the village tomorrow morning? Words alone may not do justice to what we're building." Jiraiya nodded, indeed feeling the day's fatigue weighing on him. He needed a quiet space to reflect on Yahiko's words. After collecting his thoughts, though, Jiraiya still couldn't fully understand what chakra industrialization entailed. However, from the positive growth in Hidden Rain Village and the smiles on its citizens' faces, it seemed this direction was the right one. Goods in the Land of Rain were also much cheaper than in the Land of Fire. The transformation of the impoverished Land of Rain into what it was now revealed the impressive abilities of his former students, and of that mysterious figure, Byakuya, whose motives Jiraiya couldn't yet discern. While Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan were busy welcoming Jiraiya, Byakuya was showing Orochimaru around Hidden Rain Village. After 3 months of effort, Orochimaru had secured a base in the Land of Rice Fields, establishing his own shinobi village and completing Byakuya's assigned task. With his territory secured, Orochimaru was eager to procure equipment to build a massive lab in his new domain. However, a shortage of funds delayed his progress, forcing him to turn to his current superior, Byakuya. Byakuya, without hesitation, brought Orochimaru to Hidden Rain Village for a tour. Initially, Orochimaru felt skeptical of Byakuya's offer of help. It wasn't that he doubted Hidden Rain Village's capabilities, but that many advanced pieces of equipment were only available in the major countries like the Land of Fire, the Land of Earth, and the Land of Lightning. Yet upon entering Hidden Rain Village, Orochimaru was taken aback by the village's industrial prowess. Hidden Rain Village not only excelled in heavy industry but also in advanced technology, with numerous skilled professionals recruited into the Akatsuki as administrative members. After acquiring the necessary materials, Byakuya and Orochimaru prepared to return to the Akatsuki base. However, they happened to see Jiraiya being led to the main building by Nagato. The sight of Jiraiya caused Orochimaru's heart to skip a beat. Jiraiya had a keen intelligence network and was highly sensitive to Orochimaru's chakra. If he detected Orochimaru here, Byakuya would likely find himself in a precarious situation. Orochimaru glanced nervously at Byakuya, who merely looked unconcerned. This nonchalance made Orochimaru even more uneasy. If Jiraiya detected his presence, would Byakuya betray him and hand him over to Jiraiya? Just when Orochimaru thought he might be exposed, Byakuya casually patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Relax, Orochimaru. Nagato and Jiraiya have already left. Although I must say, Jiraiya has quite the nose. He tracked you all the way here." Feigning calm, Orochimaru replied, "That's typical of Jiraiya. But doesn't he fear Hanzo the Salamander? Coming to Hidden Rain Village so brazenly." As a recent member of the Akatsuki, Orochimaru now understood the true dynamics of Hidden Rain Village as leadership. While Yahiko's group publicly claimed to have inherited Hanzo's title, the truth was that the transition had been more of an insurrection, and Hanzo hadn't been seen by the villagers for years. To most Hidden Rain Village shinobi, Hanzo was long dead. They saw it as the Akatsuki's era. But Jiraiya was probably unaware of that. Wouldn't he be worried about encountering Hanzo? And if Hanzo were still alive, wouldn't his presence pose a significant threat? Byakuya paid no mind to Orochimaru's musings. He had his reasons for helping Orochimaru acquire supplies and was simply interested in Orochimaru's funds and in demonstrating Hidden Rain Village's uniqueness. Unlike other shinobi villages, Hidden Rain Village was more open and inclusive, promising a research environment that Orochimaru wouldn't find elsewhere. As for Jiraiya's visit, Byakuya knew about it shortly after Nagato, though he remained a step ahead of Yahiko and Conan. He had been monitoring Jiraiya's movements all along. Yet this time, Byakuya neither greeted nor intercepted Jiraiya. He wanted to observe from the sidelines to see how Jiraiya would respond to the new Hidden Rain Village. Would he see Hidden Rain Village's changes as a threat to the one village per nation system, potentially becoming an enemy of Hidden Leaf Village? Or would he appreciate Hidden Rain Village's progress and consider introducing similar reforms in Hidden Leaf Village? Byakuya wasn't sure what Jiraiya's final decision would be, but he was certainly curious. Could Jiraiya, under his influence, abandon his loyalty to Mount Myabaku and become a staunch ally of the Akatsuki? After all, compared to Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Rain Village was far cleaner and embodied the very ideals Jiraiya once dreamed of. Chapter 228, Jiraiya's Inner Gap. The next morning, after a night of rest, Jiraiya arrived at the Hidden Rain Village building. Yahiko, who had been waiting for quite some time, came forward, ready to guide Jiraiya on a tour of Hidden Rain Village to showcase the village's growth and changes over the years. Jiraiya did not decline Yahiko's offer. He also wanted to walk around Hidden Rain Village and see firsthand how this village had transformed from a small, poor shinobi village to its current state. If possible, he hoped to bring back this knowledge to Hidden Leaf Village and have his teacher, the third Hokage, learn from it. After all these events, Hidden Leaf Village was no longer the unparalleled first shinobi village in the world. Not only had it suffered setbacks in battles against Hidden Clouds Village and Hidden Stones Village, but even Hidden Rain Village had now surpassed it. Pulling himself out of his wandering thoughts, Jiraiya silently followed behind Yahiko and began his tour of Hidden Rain Village. Yahiko took Jiraiya to their first stop, the Ninja Academy. Unlike Hidden Leaf Village's semi-open Ninja Academy, Hidden Rain Village's academy was a tall building with a cold exterior of steel and concrete. However, inside, it presented a completely different scene, looking like a hidden paradise. Inside the building, there were not only numerous green plants but even a small stadium. The arrival of Yahiko and his group immediately caught the attention of the academy's teachers and students. They quickly gathered around, calling out Leader Yahiko, to which Yahiko responded with a smile. Yahiko's calm and unhurried demeanor reminded Jiraiya of his own teacher, the third Hokage, filling him with mixed emotions. The once wandering orphans he had trained had now grown into a formidable leader of a shinobi village and had earned the love and respect of Hidden Rain Village's people. And here he was, their former teacher, who had made no significant progress over the years and seemed to be moving backward in life. After a moment of reflection, Jiraiya continued to follow Yahiko, visiting classrooms, the library, and finally arriving at the office of the academy's principal. Opening the door, Jiraiya saw a familiar figure, Conan. Though Conan was responsible for Hidden Rain Village's finances and logistics, she also held roles as the academy principal and the head of the village's welfare center. Jiraiya greeted Conan and immediately inquired about Hidden Rain Village's ninja academy. He was very curious about its history. Upon her teacher's request, Conan naturally obliged and began to recount the history of Hidden Rain Village's academy. Unlike Hidden Leaf Village, which had established its ninja academy early on, Hidden Rain Village's academy was founded quite late, almost right after the end of the Second Great Shinobi War, when Hanzo the Salamander decided to follow the example of the second Hokage and set up a ninja school. During Hanzo's rule, however, the academy was almost monopolized by a few powerful clans, making it incredibly difficult for ordinary people to enter. Even after 3 years of training, many could only serve as cannon fodder on the battlefield. Hearing this, Jiraiya nodded. This account of Hanzo's ninja academy fit his expectations of Hidden Rain Village, a small shinobi village that could only realistically support a few hundred ninjas at most. This number matched the ninja counts of the larger families. However, he was more curious about how Hidden Rain Village's academy had evolved from Hanzo's era of clan monopolies into its current state. Although he hadn't been keeping track on purpose, he had roughly estimated the number of academy students. The number of students at Hidden Rain Village's ninja academy was certainly over 200, possibly even 500 or 600. This number of ninja students was greater than that of Hidden Leaf Village's ninja academy, which was astonishing. Noticing Jiraiya's look of surprise, Conan explained the current state of Hidden Rain Village's academy after describing the school during Hanzo's time. The current Hidden Rain Village academy, unlike those in other villages, no longer train mercenary-type ninjas. Aside from a few students required to learn escort and assassination techniques, most only need to master the 3 basic jutsu. The rest of their time can be spent taking elective courses, such as medical ninjutsu, chakra industrial technology, and chakra biological sciences. Only after fully mastering one of these subjects can students officially graduate from the academy. Upon hearing this, Jiraiya felt somewhat relieved. But he then thought of something and asked Conan, "It's good for ninjas to avoid constant fighting, but isn't this graduation requirement a bit harsh? For ordinary people, just mastering the 3 basic jutsu is challenging enough." "Harsh?" Conan shook her head and explained, "So far, no students have graduated, but unlike Hidden Leaf Village, our education system isn't 3 years, it's between 7 and 9 years. 7 to 9 years? Jiraiya was astonished. He had thought that when his old teacher extended Hidden Leaf Village's ninja academy to 6 years, it was already quite lengthy. He never imagined that Hidden Rain Village's program would last 7 to 9 years. Back in his day, he graduated as a geinin after less than 2 years of training. Minato's generation had stricter standards, but even then, graduation only took 3 years. Ninjas today are living in a much easier time. At this point, Yahiko stepped forward to explain. The 7 to 9 year program was initially proposed by Byakuya. I later discussed it with Brother Minato, and we both agreed that delaying the graduation age for ninjas was necessary. Ninja is a brutal profession. Exposing young students to the cruel shinobi world too early can lead them down a dark path. They need to be mature enough to make that final decision on their own. Pausing for a moment, Yahiko continued, however, Nagato and I are more inclined toward making ninjutsu more accessible to the general public than solely producing the next generation of ninjas. Many young people, although lacking the talent to become ninjas, can still learn a few basic techniques to improve their lives. Hidden Rain Village's development over the past few years would have been impossible without their contributions. Yahiko smiled genuinely as he spoke, having witnessed firsthand the transformation of Hidden Rain Village. Jiraiya was moved to silence, feeling a pang in his heart. It wasn't only because Yahiko had mentioned Minato, his most cherished student and the 4th Hokage, who had given his life to protect the village on the night of the Nine Tails attack. It was also because the many reforms Minato had initiated as the 4th Hokage had all been discarded. Under Minato's leadership, Hidden Leaf Village's major departments had been divided, and even the police force saw civilians among its ranks for the first time. But after Minato's death, when the old man returned to the Hokage's office, everything reverted to the old ways. Jiraiya didn't mean that the old man's policies were entirely wrong. He had at least preserved the village through several wars, preventing it from fracturing. But comparisons are inevitable. With Yahiko and Hidden Rain Village as reference points, the old man seemed ineffective, mired in trivialities. After barely finishing the skirmishes with Hidden Cloud's village, the old man showed no intentions of furthering the village's development, instead focusing on suppressing the Uchiha clan and allowing someone like Denzo, a disruptive meddler, to be active on Hidden Leaf Village's stage. If things continue this way, Hidden Leaf Village's future will be in grave danger. Chapter 229, Attack from Hidden Grass Village. After touring the Ninja Academy, Jiraiya, led by Yahiko, continued visiting other areas of Hidden Rain Village, covering nearly the entire village except for the Akatsuki base. Upon returning to the Hidden Rain Village building, Jiraiya felt deeply conflicted. He was happy to see Yahiko, Nagato, and the others having developed Hidden Rain Village so well, realizing his own former dreams. But Hidden Rain Village was not Hidden Leaf Village, and in Jiraiya's heart, nothing could take the place of Hidden Leaf Village. Yet, Hidden Rain Village's growth could eventually pose a threat to Hidden Leaf Village, unless Hidden Leaf Village also embraced sweeping reforms similar to Hidden Rain Village's. However, reforms are never easy. Even if he were to run for 5th Hokage, his personality alone wouldn't be enough to overcome the village's opposition. Even his teacher, who had held the position of Hokage for decades, still had to compromise at critical times. At that moment, Jiraiya suddenly remembered something and asked Yahiko, "By the way, Yahiko, how has Lord Hanzo been? I didn't see him around the village." Lord Hanzo. Yahiko and Conan exchanged glances before Yahiko replied, "He retired a long time ago and hasn't been involved in village affairs for quite some time." "Is that so? I was hoping to meet him," Jiraiya said, his expression subtly shifting with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. Jiraiya wondered if Yahiko and Conan might be hiding something from him. Their rise to power couldn't have been as simple as they made it sound. If Hanzo, unaware of Yahiko and the others' connection to Jiraiya, initially nurtured them, he likely would have suspected their ties to Hidden Leaf Village after Yahiko's visit there. Once he knew this, it wouldn't make sense for Hanzo to hand over his leadership role and let Yahiko and the others take over Hidden Rain Village. Unless Byakuya was the actual power in Hidden Rain Village and Hanzo had chosen him as his true successor. But even though Jiraiya had been in Hidden Rain Village for 2 days now, he still hadn't met Byakuya, which felt strange. Still, Byakuya had always been elusive, so perhaps he was off somewhere else. Clearing his mind, Jiraiya decided not to dwell on irrelevant details. Now, he only wanted to leave Hidden Rain Village and continue his journey across various nations. After spending one more night in Hidden Rain Village, Jiraiya bid farewell to Yahiko and the others and departed from the Land of Rain. Standing at the village gate, Yahiko sighed lightly as he watched Jiraiya's figure fade into the distance, his heart filled with mixed emotions. As a village leader, Yahiko had long developed a keen sense of reading people. He could sense the inner turmoil within Jiraiya, understanding that his former teacher's feelings were complex, perhaps because Yahiko had mentioned Minato, or perhaps for other reasons. Just then, a figure appeared beside Yahiko, looking off in the direction of Jiraiya's departure. He spoke softly, "So, Yahiko, how did things go with Jiraiya?" Yahiko turned to Byakuya, surprised. "Byakuya, where have you been? I hadn't seen you these past few days, I thought you had gone off on another mission." Byakuya shook his head and replied, "I didn't leave the village. I only stayed out of sight so as not to interrupt your reunion with your teacher. But you all certainly showed Jiraiya a lot of places. You've been so open with him. Did you consider that Jiraiya might take this opportunity to gather intelligence on Hidden Rain Village and report back to the third Hokage? Jiraiya-sensei isn't like that. Yahiko started to explain, then gave Byakuya a curious look. Byakuya, you didn't stop us from taking Jiraiya-sensei on a tour. Don't tell me you had some sort of scheme in mind? Byakuya's expression shifted slightly, and he quickly denied it. I wouldn't call it a scheme, exactly. After a pause, he added, but I don't object to sharing our success with Jiraiya. If he wants to follow our example, then let him try. However, the Land of Fire is very different from the Land of Rain. I don't think Jiraiya will accomplish much. Hearing this, Yahiko fell into brief contemplation. Byakuya's blunt words hit on a hard truth. Jiraiya would struggle to make a real impact in Hidden Leaf Village, even with Yahiko and Nagato's experiences shared. The reforms in Hidden Rain Village had relied on a powerful precondition, military strength. Byakuya and Yahiko had risen to power by force, quelling any opposition and steering Hidden Rain Village's development. But Jiraiya would never attempt a coup, nor even had ambitions to become Hokage. If he did, he wouldn't be wandering the world aimlessly, seemingly at ease. Yahiko sighed and gazed into the distance, his view of his once respected teacher shifting. The once great figure of Jiraiya now seemed more ordinary. Though he preached the ideal of mutual understanding, Jiraiya rarely took concrete actions to achieve it. When Yahiko looked past the lens of his childhood admiration, he saw that his teacher was a mere human trying to survive in the cruel world of ninjas. After letting his thoughts settle, Yahiko turned to Byakuya and said, I still believe in Jiraiya-sensei. He will one day stand beside us as a true ally. Byakuya nodded, then I look forward to that day. Just then, an Anbu operative suddenly appeared before Byakuya, bowing respectfully as he addressed both leaders. Lord Byakuya, Lord Yahiko, I have an urgent report from the border. Yahiko's face grew serious. What happened at the border? Without wasting a word, the Anbu replied, several hours ago, Hidden Grass Village ninjas invaded the Land of Rain and harmed its citizens. Hidden Grass Village? What gives them the courage to do this? Byakuya's expression darkened, a cold anger seeping through. Did we not teach them a sufficient lesson in the past? This time, we should eliminate their leadership completely. Byakuya, that's extreme. Yahiko reflexively started to object, though he too struggled to tolerate the provocation. But we'll need to consider our options carefully. Though Byakuya's expression was intense, his mind was puzzled. What had emboldened Hidden Grass Village to act so boldly against Hidden Rain Village? Was it possible that the box of ultimate bliss from Hazuki Castle in the Land of Grass had resurfaced? Perhaps the Hidden Grass Village ninjas were attempting to use the power of the box of ultimate bliss to expand their territory. If so, Byakuya would have to leave the village temporarily to form alliances and address the threat. After all, the box of ultimate bliss was a relic from the Sage of Six Paths era, containing a creature with strength rivaling that of a tailed beast. Chapter 230, Revisiting Familiar Territory. The Land of Grass bordered the Land of Rain, so it only took Byakuya a few hours to reach it. Once there, he quickly subdued a few rogue Hidden Grass Village shinobi who were pillaging the area. Using genjutsu, Byakuya read their memories and uncovered crucial information about Hidden Grass Village's recent activities. Their recent incursions at the border were indeed linked to the Box of Ultimate Bliss. However, the attacks on the Rain country's border weren't part of some long-standing conspiracy, rather, they were fallout from a civil war within Hidden Grass Village itself. Ironically, Byakuya had played a part in sparking this unrest. When he rescued Akon, Hidden Grass Village lost a valuable healer machine. Without Akon, they no longer had access to affordable medical services, which had been their competitive edge. As a third-rate ninja village, Hidden Grass Village couldn't beat Hidden Sand Village in price competition, nor could it rival Hidden Leaf Village's stellar reputation and service. Over time, financial strains caused tensions to build within the village, leading to an internal conflict. The Hawkish Grass Seed faction publicly challenged the current leader, the Dovish Grass Flower faction, at the Jonin Council meeting. They criticized the Doves for being too passive, never initiating wars. The Hawks demanded that the Box of Ultimate Bliss be opened, believing the monster within could help Hidden Grass Village reclaim its past glory. In the Sage of Six Paths era, the Land of Grass had once been the most powerful nation in the ninja world. The Grass Flower faction opposed opening the box. While it had once elevated the Land of Grass to supremacy, it had also brought centuries of misfortune. With neither side willing to back down, the Grass Seed faction dispatched ninjas to raid the Land of Rain, hoping to provoke a war and force the Doves to unlock the box and realize their dream of world domination. After gleaning this information, Byakuya shrugged. He had suspected that Hidden Grass Village had already opened the Box of Ultimate Bliss and released the creature that feeds on negative emotions. Yet, Things hadn't escalated to that point. In fact, the box required a massive amount of chalk rot to open, and Hidden Grass Village likely lacked both the means to unlock it and the strength to control the creature inside. Still, with Hidden Grass Village instigating conflict, the Akatsuki now had grounds to intervene in the Land of Grass. Having taken care of the rogue Hidden Grass Village ninjas, Byakuya returned to Hidden Rain Village's tower and reported the events to Yahiko. Yahiko frowned upon hearing that their neighbors were in turmoil. From a military perspective, Hidden Grass Village, along with the other small villages nearby, couldn't hope to stand against Hidden Rain Village. Yahiko was confident that he could defeat Hidden Grass Village within a month if it came to an all-out attack. However, if Hidden Grass Village's internal conflict was spilling over into the Land of Rain and it was merely rogue factions causing trouble, Hidden Rain Village couldn't launch a full-scale retaliation. But leaving these renegades unchecked would destabilize security and even disrupt the nation's import and export trade. As he considered the options, Yahiko instinctively looked to Byakuya. This situation could only be handled by someone like him. Many issues couldn't be addressed officially by Hidden Rain Village. So, instead, they required the shadowy touch of Byakuya and his Akatsuki organization. Recently, he'd even heard that Byakuya had recruited several more ruthless ninjas. Byakuya noticed Yahiko's gaze and knew his friend was once again planning to use him as the workhorse. But this time, Byakuya didn't plan to handle the mission personally. Instead, he proposed an alternative. Yahiko, I can take care of Hidden Grass Village, but I think this task would be a great opportunity for Nagato. Nagato? Yahiko's eyebrows raised, surprised. Nagato probably has little interest in such matters. Besides, do you think he's ready to handle an entire shinobi village? Byakuya raised an eyebrow, feeling that Yahiko had grown too comfortable over the years. Perhaps he'd begun to underestimate Nagato's true potential. Though Nagato had spent recent years working on construction and infrastructure projects in the Land of Rain, he had not neglected his training or puppet making. His strength was among the highest in Akatsuki, even making it challenging for Byakuya himself to keep up. Reading Byakuya's expression, Yahiko quickly clarified, it's not that I doubt Nagato's abilities. I've seen how much he's improved over the years. But handling an entire ninja village on his own, I'm worried he lacks the experience. Yahiko still remembered the Nagato from their youth, the quietest and most indecisive of their group. Even now, despite possessing the Rinnegan and being hailed by Jiraiya-sensei as the child of prophecy, Yahiko wasn't sure if Nagato had the confidence or assertiveness needed for a solo mission. After a moment's thought, Byakuya replied, Nagato needs the chance to try. He's been responsible for many construction projects, leading teams successfully. But if he always remains sheltered in the background, he'll never realize his full potential. Byakuya meant every word. He genuinely wanted Nagato to grow into his own. Because his own unexpected arrival had altered the original trajectory of Akatsuki, he had also changed the destinies of Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato. In the original timeline, Nagato would have already been assembling forces to take on Hanzo the Salamander, and after defeating him, would consider himself a god of Hidden Rain Village, aiming for peace through the fearsome might of the tailed beasts. However, the Nagato of that timeline and the present Nagato both carried Yahiko's ideals, only with different approaches suited to different times. Even in the original timeline, Yahiko had always been the guiding force in Nagato's heart, whether advocating peace through dialogue or peace through strength. After a pause, Yahiko relented and agreed to let Nagato take on the mission. He, too, wanted Nagato to grow and step into his role as the true child of prophecy. When the Anbu summoned Nagato from his construction work, he looked at Yahiko and Byakuya in confusion. He'd been focused on building new housing for the villagers, so being called in urgently made him wonder if something significant had occurred. Without wasting words, they informed Nagato of the mission. Upon hearing Yahiko and Byakuya's request for him to go abroad on this mission, Nagato didn't protest. Instead, he fell into a thoughtful silence, sensing Yahiko's intention. After a moment of reflection, Nagato nodded and accepted the task of traveling to the Land of Grass to mediate its internal conflict. He knew it would be challenging, but he wanted to try. Even if he failed, he trusted Byakuya would have his back. With a few necessities packed, Byakuya and Nagato departed the village and headed toward the Land of Grass. Their pace was swift, and within a few hours, they arrived at the outskirts of Hidden Grass Village. Chapter 231, The Box of Ultimate Bliss. Upon arriving at Hidden Grass Village, Byakuya and Nagato used transformation jutsu to enter the village as merchants, blending in with ease. This wasn't their first time infiltrating Hidden Grass Village. Their last visit had been to rescue Karen. 5 or 6 years had passed since that last infiltration, yet Hidden Grass Village remained largely unchanged. The only noticeable difference was a reduced flow of people due to internal unrest. Otherwise, everything seemed just as it had been. For the villagers of Hidden Grass Village, the lack of change was a blessing. They had no desire to experience another great ninja war. Yet, the worsening internal strife had some villagers considering whether it might be time to leave Hidden Grass Village. But to Nagato, Hidden Grass Village's stagnation was disappointing. He still remembered his first arrival in Hidden Grass Village, marveling at its bustling vitality. In just a few short years, Hidden Rain Village had outpaced it. Once inside, Byakuya and Nagato didn't head to the Hidden Grass Village headquarters but instead sat down in a nearby izakaya. The izakaya was filled with all sorts. Drunken shinobi often let slip personal thoughts and minor pieces of intelligence, such as the ongoing struggle between the Hawk and Dove factions in the Land of Grass, or information about the mysterious Box of Ultimate Bliss. Hearing the term Box of Ultimate Bliss, Nagato paused. He didn't know what it was, but the name alone suggested it was no ordinary object. Apparently, the conflict between Hidden Grass Village's Hawk and Dove factions was centered on control over this Box of Ultimate Bliss. After pondering for a moment, Nagato asked Byakuya, "Byakuya, how much do you know about this Box of Ultimate Bliss they mentioned?" Byakuya, who knew quite a bit, didn't withhold anything from Nagato. The Box of Ultimate Bliss was said to contain a demon and was rumored to grant wishes to anyone who could open it. Centuries ago, the Land of Grass had risen to become the strongest nation in the ninja world thanks to the box. Hearing this, Nagato clenched his fists, immediately realizing the significance of the box. If he and Byakuya intended to resolve the Land of Grass's current turmoil, they would need to focus on the Box of Ultimate Bliss. But he had no idea where it was located. Byakuya noticed Nagato's intent and said calmly, "Leave the Box of Ultimate Bliss to me. Your task is to communicate with Hidden Grass Village's leader, and if necessary, demonstrate absolute force." With that, Byakuya vanished, leaving Nagato alone. Nagato stood there briefly, then set about gathering information. He knew Byakuya hadn't truly left but was giving him an opportunity to hone his skills. After parting ways with Nagato, Byakuya headed directly toward Hazuki Castle. Hazuki Castle was an international prison semi-independent of Hidden Grass Village, serving as the stronghold for Hidden Grass Village's Hawk faction. It held high-profile criminals from various nations and was also where the Box of Ultimate Bliss was kept. The reason was straightforward: the Box of Ultimate Bliss was powerful, with a strength comparable to a tailed beast. However, to unlock the box, a vast amount of chakra was needed, and the prisoners condemned to spend their lives there made ideal sources. After all, with Hidden Grass Village's current strength, capturing a tailed beast was out of the question. A few kilometers from Hazuki Castle, Byakuya could already sense the dense chakra signatures within. Most of these sources were weak, though a few were notably stronger. In the depths below, Byakuya detected an unusual chakra presence. Though faint, this chakra reminded him of the ferocity of a tailed beast. It was likely the chakra of the Box of Ultimate Bliss. Infiltrating Hazuki Castle through the ventilation system, Byakuya found his way into an underground laboratory. In the underground laboratory, there was a square metal box with faces of joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure carved onto it. It was unmistakably the Box of Ultimate Bliss. Surrounding the box was a group of ninjas trapped in a magical array, all emaciated and weak, channeling their chakra into the box. At that moment, Byakuya noticed a particular prisoner, a young boy who bore a slight resemblance to the Land of Grass's ninjas. The boy, Muku, turned toward a grass country jonin named Mu and asked, "Father, do you really think the Box of Ultimate Bliss can grant wishes? If it can, then why has the village fallen into such decline?" Mua replied to Muku, "The Box of Ultimate Bliss is unbeatable. As long as we manage to open it, Hidden Grass Village will be able to achieve revival. I'm willing to do anything for that." Hearing his father's words, Muku fell silent for a long time. He didn't fully understand why his father was so obsessed with the box, but he wanted to help him. If he could support his father's dreams, he would be glad to. As he pondered, voices began echoing in Muku's mind. His intuition told him that these voices came from the Box of Ultimate Bliss, possibly from within, and that the entity inside, Mu, was proposing a deal to him. If Muku was willing to sacrifice his own life, Mu would consider granting his father's wishes. Byakuya, with his keen eyesight, noticed the subtle change in Muku's expression. He sighed, both moved by the bond between father and son and saddened by what he knew. In his experience, while the Box of Ultimate Bliss could indeed grant wishes, it did so in ways that often strayed far from what a person desired. He remembered that Muku's wish had been to help Mua gain a higher position in the hierarchy. However, Muku himself would end up as the box's price, drawn back inside. Later, when Mua sought to collect chakra in hopes of resurrecting his son, the box would play a cruel trick. Muku would indeed be resurrected, but as Satori's vessel. During the father and son's conversation, Byakuya moved quietly to the Box of Ultimate Bliss and reached out to touch the container that sealed Satori.